Tonight, we're going to take a very special journey together. It's a journey that millions of people have taken before us, searching for one of life's biggest questions. What is life really about? Why are we here? You know that feeling when you look up at the stars and wonder about your place in this big, beautiful world? Or when you help someone and your heart feels warm and full? Tonight, we're going to explore these feelings together. Through ancient wisdom that's as gentle as moonlight and as comforting as your favorite bedtime story. We'll walk through peaceful gardens, sit by calm lakes, and discover treasures that have been hidden in your heart all along. The best part? You don't need to do anything except listen, breathe, and let yourself drift into the most peaceful sleep you've had in a long time. This isn't just a story. It's an invitation to discover something beautiful about yourself and about life itself. Before you get settled, please like this video and subscribe. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is. Just drop a comment and let me know. It's always wonderful to see people from around the world joining us. Now turn down your lights, maybe switch off that fan or any background noise, and let's start this peaceful journey together. Chapter 1. The Child Who Asked Everything, Part 1. The Garden of Questions. Let me tell you about a little child who lived in a small village long, long ago. This child was just like you in many ways, curious, kind, and always wondering about the world. But this child had something special. They noticed everything. When you looked at a tree, you might see just a tree, but this child would see the way the leaves danced differently in the morning breeze than in the evening wind. They would wonder why some leaves fell early while others held on tight to their branches, even when winter came. Every morning, this child would wake up with a head full of questions bubbling up like water from a spring. Why does the sun rise every day? Why do flowers bloom and then fade away? Why do some days feel happy and others feel sad? And why do I feel like there's something important I'm supposed to understand, but I can't quite figure out what it is? Take a slow breath with me. Feel yourself sinking a little deeper into comfort. The child would walk through the village, and everywhere they went, new questions would bloom in their mind. They watched the old woman who sat by her window every day, just watching the world go by, and wondered, what is she thinking about? What has she learned in all her years? They asked the baker, who was always covered in flour and smiling, why do you make bread every day? The baker wiped his hands on his apron and said, to feed people, little one. Hungry bellies need filling. But the child tilted their head and wondered, but why do people need to be fed? What happens after they eat? What's it all for? The baker paused, his hands still for a moment. You know, he said slowly, I've never really thought about that before. They asked the gardener, who was always digging in the earth, why do you plant seeds when they might not grow? The gardener wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, because something beautiful might happen. You have to plant the seed before you can see the flower. But the child wondered even more. But why do we want beautiful things? Why does beauty make our hearts feel warm? The gardener set down his tools and sat on an old tree stump. That's a very big question for such a little person, he said, looking puzzled. Day after day, the child walked through the village with these big questions growing in their heart, like seeds waiting to bloom. The questions weren't scary. They were like gentle butterflies dancing in the child's mind, beautiful but hard to catch. Breathe with me again, in and out. Let your shoulders relax. The child would sit by the river and watch the water flow endlessly toward the sea. Where is all this water going? They wondered. And why does it never stop moving? Is it trying to get somewhere special? They would lie in the grass and watch the clouds change shape. Do the clouds know they're beautiful? Do they choose what shapes to make? Or does something else decide for them? At night, when the stars came out like tiny diamonds scattered across dark velvet, the child would whisper to them, "Are you watching over us? Do you know something we don't know? What's the secret you're all keeping up there?" The other children in the village were happy playing games and chasing butterflies. But this special child, while they loved to play too, always had this gentle feeling that there was something more, something deeper, something waiting to be discovered. Their parents would tuck them into bed, and the child would ask, "Mama, Papa, why are we here? What are we supposed to do with our lives?" Their parents would smile and kiss their forehead. "You're here to grow up big and strong," they would say. "You're here to learn and play and help others." "But why?" the child would whisper. "Why do we help others? Why do we grow? What happens after we grow up?" Their parents didn't know how to answer such deep questions from someone so young. They would just hold the child close and say, "Those are questions for when you're older, little one." But the child couldn't wait. The questions felt too important, too alive in their heart. One evening, as the child sat by the old oak tree at the edge of the village, feeling a little tired from all the wondering, they noticed someone sitting quietly nearby. It was an old teacher with kind eyes that sparkled like stars. The teacher had been watching the child's journey through the village with a gentle smile. The teacher's clothes were simple, like those of a traveler who had walked many roads. Their face was peaceful, like still water reflecting the sky. But most wonderful of all, when the child looked at the teacher, they felt like they were looking at someone who might actually know the answers to all those dancing butterfly questions. "You have many questions, little one," the teacher said softly, their voice as calm as still water and as warm as sunlight. The child looked up, suddenly feeling shy but also excited, like finding a treasure chest that might actually contain treasure. "Yes," they whispered. "I want to know what life is for. Why are we all here? What's the point of everything? Why do I feel like there's something important I'm missing?" The teacher's smile grew even warmer, like a candle flame growing brighter. "These are the most important questions anyone can ask," they said. "Do you know that these same questions have been asked by every person who has ever lived? By children and grown-ups, by kings and farmers, by people in every village in every land?" The child's eyes grew wide. "Really? Everyone wonders about these things?" "Oh yes," the teacher nodded. "And do you know what the most beautiful part is? The fact that you're asking these questions means you're ready to discover something wonderful about yourself and about life. Take another slow breath with me. Feel your whole body relaxing, like sinking into a warm, comfortable cloud." "Would you like to take a walk with me?" the teacher asked. "I know some special places where we might find answers together. But I must tell you something first. The answers aren't like the ones you get when you ask, 'What color is the sky?' or 'How many fingers do you have?' These answers are different. They're the kind you feel in your heart, not just in your head." The child's heart filled with hope, like a flower opening to the morning sun. "Really? You mean there are answers? Real answers?" "Oh yes," the teacher laughed gently. and their laugh was like water bubbling over stones in a stream. But they're not the kind of answers you find in books or that someone can just tell you. They're the kind you discover by walking the path itself, step by careful step, breath by gentle breath. The teacher stood up slowly, like someone who has all the time in the world. Come, let's begin. But first, let me ask you something. When you've been asking all these questions, how did it feel inside your heart? The child thought for a moment. Sometimes excited, like I was about to discover something amazing. Sometimes a little sad, like I was looking for something I lost. Sometimes lonely, like nobody else understood why these questions felt so important. All of those feelings are perfect, the teacher said softly. They're all part of the journey, and now you don't have to walk alone anymore. As they stood up together, the teacher placed a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. The touch felt like coming home after a long day, safe and warm, and exactly right. The most wonderful thing about these questions you're asking, the teacher continued, is that everyone who has ever lived has asked them too. You're not alone in your wondering. You're not strange or different for feeling like there's something deeper to discover. You're part of something much bigger and more beautiful than you can imagine. The child felt a warm glow in their chest, like holding a cup of hot cocoa on a cold day, like being wrapped in the softest blanket, like being understood for the very first time. Where are we going? The child asked as they began to walk together toward the horizon, where the first stars were beginning to twinkle. We're going to visit 4 special gardens, the teacher said, their voice mixing with the gentle evening breeze. Each one will show you something important about life. The first garden will help you understand why sometimes life feels difficult. The second will show you why we sometimes feel like we're always wanting more. The third will teach you about the peace that lives inside you. And the fourth will show you how to walk through life in a way that brings joy to yourself and everyone around you. The child's steps felt lighter, like walking on soft moss. And by the time we visited all 4 gardens, I'll understand what life is for. You'll understand not just what life is for, the teacher smiled, but how beautiful and precious your own life really is. You'll discover that you already have everything you need to be happy, and you'll learn how to share that happiness with the whole world. Hand in hand, the teacher and the curious child began their journey into the gathering twilight. The air was soft and warm, filled with the gentle sounds of evening. Crickets beginning their lullabies, leaves whispering secrets to each other. And somewhere in the distance, the peaceful sound of water flowing over stones. The first garden was waiting for them just around the bend, and with it, the first gentle truth about the meaning of life. But for now, walking together in the peaceful evening air, the child felt something they had never felt before while asking their big questions. They felt peaceful. They felt held. They felt like they were exactly where they belonged. Take a deep, slow breath with me now, in through your nose, feeling peace flowing into your whole body, and out slowly through your mouth, letting go of any tension or worry. Feel yourself settling deeper and deeper into comfort, like sinking into the softest bed, ready for the next part of our gentle journey together. The night is soft around us, and we have all the time we need. Just rest and listen, and let yourself be carried by this peaceful story toward the sweetest dreams. Part 2. The 4 Truths Like Seasons. Chapter 2. The Garden of Suffering, Spring. The teacher and child walked along a winding path that seemed to glow softly in the moonlight. After a while, they came to a tall wooden gate covered in climbing roses. Some of the roses were in full bloom, their petals soft and fragrant. Others were just beginning to open, and some had already started to drop their petals on the ground below. "This is the first garden," the teacher said, pushing open the gate with a gentle creak. "This is the garden of spring, where we learn about the first truth of life." As they stepped inside, the child gasped with wonder. The garden was beautiful beyond anything they had ever seen. There were flowers of every color imaginable. Bright red tulips standing tall like tiny soldiers, delicate white daisies dancing in the breeze, purple irises reaching toward the stars, and golden daffodils glowing like little suns. But as the child looked more closely, they began to notice something that made their heart feel a little heavy. Some of the most beautiful flowers were beginning to droop. Petals were scattered on the pathways like colorful tears. An old oak tree in the center of the garden had branches that were strong and full, but some of its leaves were turning yellow and drifting to the ground. "Teacher," the child said quietly, "why are some of these beautiful flowers dying? It makes me feel sad." The teacher nodded and sat down on a small stone bench beside a fountain where water trickled softly. "Come sit with me, little one. This is exactly what this garden wants to teach you." The child settled next to the teacher, still looking around at the mixture of blooming life and gentle decay. A butterfly landed on a rose near them, its wings bright orange and black. It sipped nectar for a moment, then flew away to another flower. "Tell me," the teacher said, "what do you see when you look around this garden?" "I see flowers that are beautiful, and some that are wilting. I see new buds that haven't opened yet, and petals falling like rain. I see that butterfly moving from flower to flower, never staying in one place very long." "You see very clearly," the teacher smiled. "Now, how does seeing all of this make you feel?" The child thought for a moment, watching as another petal drifted past them on the evening breeze. "It makes me feel happy and sad at the same time. The flowers are so beautiful, but I wish they could stay beautiful forever. I wish nothing ever had to die or go away." "Ah," said the teacher softly, "you have just discovered the first great truth about life. Everything that exists, every flower, every tree, every person, every happy moment, all of it changes. Nothing stays exactly the same forever." The child picked up a fallen rose petal, soft as silk between their fingers. "But why? Why can't beautiful things last forever?" "Let me tell you a story," the teacher said, and their voice took on the rhythm of someone who has told this story many times, to many people, under many starlit skies. Once, there was a little girl who had a favorite toy, a small wooden horse with a painted red saddle. She carried this horse everywhere. She slept with it under her pillow, played with it in the garden, and whispered all her secrets to it. She loved that little horse more than anything in the world. The child leaned closer, imagining the girl and her beloved toy. One day, while playing by the river, the little horse slipped from her hands and fell into the water. The current was strong, and despite her tears and her father's attempts to catch it, the little horse was carried away downstream. The girl cried for days. She felt like a piece of her heart had been washed away with her toy. "Oh no," the child whispered. "That's so sad. Did she ever get it back?" "No, she never saw that particular horse again." But here's what happened next. Her grandmother, seeing how heartbroken she was, sat with her and said something very wise. She said, "My dear one, The reason you're crying is because you loved that horse so much. Your tears are proof of how deeply you can love." The teacher paused, letting the child absorb this idea. Then her grandmother said, "Now I'm going to tell you a secret. That love you feel, that beautiful warm feeling in your heart when you held your horse, that love is still there. The toy is gone, but the love remains. And that love is something that can never be washed away by any river." The child was quiet for a moment, turning the rose petal over in their hands. "So, the sad feeling comes from loving things? The sad feeling comes from wanting things to stay exactly the same forever, when change is actually how life works. Think about it. If nothing ever changed, you would never grow bigger or stronger or wiser. Flowers would never bloom if they stayed as seeds forever. The seasons would never come if winter held on and never let go for spring." A gentle breeze stirred the garden, and more petals danced through the air around them. The child watched them swirl and settle, seeing something beautiful in their movement. "But it still makes me feel sad when good things end," the child said. "Of course it does," the teacher replied, "and that's perfectly natural. Feeling sad when we lose something we love shows that we have a tender, caring heart. But here's what I want you to understand. That sadness doesn't mean something is wrong. It means something is very right. It means you're alive, and you can love, and you can care." The teacher stood up and walked over to a rose bush where new buds were forming alongside wilting blooms. "Look at this bush. Do you think it's sad that some of its flowers are dying?" The child walked over and studied the plant carefully. I don't think so. It looks like it's just doing what roses do, making new flowers while the old ones make room for them." "Exactly. The rose bush understands something that takes humans longer to learn. It knows that letting go of the old flowers is how it makes space for new ones. It doesn't try to hold on to every petal forever, because it trusts that more beauty is always coming." The child reached out and gently touched one of the new buds, feeling how tightly it held its petals, getting ready for the right moment to open. "So when my goldfish died last year, and when my best friend moved to another town, and when I lost my favorite blanket, those sad feelings were normal, more than normal. They were beautiful. They were your heart showing how much you can love. But tell me, even though you felt sad about those things, did other good things happen in your life too?" The child thought about this. "Well, yes. I got a new pet hamster, and I made a new friend at school, and my mom got me an even softer blanket. But I still miss the old things sometimes. And that's perfect too. Missing things we love is part of loving them. But what you've discovered is that even when we lose things we care about, life keeps offering us new things to love, new ways to be happy, new friends to meet." They walked deeper into the garden, past beds of different flowers, each one in its own stage of blooming or fading. The child began to see a pattern. Wherever old flowers had fallen and returned to the earth, new green shoots were pushing up toward the light. "Teacher, is this why grown-ups sometimes look sad even when nothing bad is happening right now?" What a wise question. Yes, sometimes grown-ups feel sad because they're remembering things they've lost, or because they're worried about losing things they love in the future. They forget what you're learning right now. That changing and letting go is not the enemy of happiness. It's actually how happiness keeps flowing, like water in a river. The child knelt down and picked up a handful of fallen petals, letting them slip through their fingers. So, the first truth about life is that everything changes and we can't keep things the same forever? Yes, and there's something else important to understand. Because everything changes, every moment becomes precious. When you know that this beautiful sunset will only last a little while, you pay attention to it in a special way. When you know your pet hamster won't live forever, you appreciate every day you have together. So things being temporary makes them more special, not less? The teacher's eyes sparkled with delight. You understand perfectly. A flower that bloomed forever would eventually become ordinary. But a flower that blooms for just a short time, showing all its beauty before gracefully letting go, is miraculous every single day. They sat back down on the stone bench, and the child watched the fountain where water bubbled up and flowed away, always moving, always fresh, always beautiful, precisely because it never tried to stay still. There's one more thing this garden teaches, the teacher said. When we truly understand that everything changes, we can stop wasting energy trying to make things stay the same forever. Instead, we can put our energy into loving what's here right now and trusting that when changes come, we'll be able to find new things to love. Like how the garden doesn't try to make winter last forever or spring or summer. Exactly. Each season brings its own gifts. Winter brings rest and quiet beauty. Spring brings new growth and fresh hope. Summer brings abundance and warmth. Autumn brings harvest and preparation. The garden doesn't fight the seasons. It dances with them. The child stood up and walked once more around the garden. But this time, instead of feeling sad about the wilting flowers, they felt amazed by the whole cycle. The buds getting ready to bloom, the flowers in full beauty, the petals letting go gracefully, and the new life beginning where the old had ended. "I think I understand," they said finally. "The first truth is that everything changes, and instead of being scared of that or trying to stop it, I can learn to see how beautiful change can be." "Yes," the teacher said, standing and brushing the petals from their robes. "And when you really understand this truth, something wonderful happens. You stop holding so tightly to things that you can't enjoy them. You start appreciating what you have while you have it. And when it's time to let go, you can do it with grace, knowing that new beauty is always on its way." As they walked toward the garden gate, the child looked back one more time at the mixture of blooming and fading flowers, seeing now that it wasn't a sad sight at all. It was life itself, constantly creating, constantly changing, constantly beautiful in its endless dance of letting go and beginning again. "Are you ready to visit the second garden?" the teacher asked. The child nodded, feeling lighter somehow, as if they had set down a heavy backpack they didn't even know they were carrying. "Yes, I want to learn the second truth." As they stepped through the gate and back onto the moonlit path, the child carried with them a new understanding. Change wasn't something to fear or fight. It was simply the way life flowed, like water in a stream, always moving towards something new and beautiful. Behind them, the Garden of Spring continued its eternal cycle, flowers blooming, petals falling, new buds forming, life constantly making room for more life. And in the soft darkness, it was the most peaceful sound in the world. Chapter 3: The Roots of Wanting, Summer. The path led them upward now, climbing a gentle hill where the air grew warmer with each step. Soon they could see another garden spread before them, and this one was completely different from the first. This garden was bursting with abundance. Fruit trees hung heavy with apples, pears, and peaches. Berry bushes overflowed with ripe, juicy fruit. Vegetable patches were thick with tomatoes, squash, and corn. Everything looked delicious and ready to eat. "Welcome to the Garden of Summer," the teacher said, opening a gate made of woven grapevines. "This is where we learn the second truth about life." The child's eyes grew wide with wonder and hunger. Everything looked so good. "Can we eat some?" "Of course," the teacher smiled. "Pick whatever calls to you." The child ran to the nearest apple tree and picked a bright red apple. They bit into it, and juice ran down their chin. This is the best apple I've ever tasted." They finished it quickly and immediately reached for another. The second apple was just as good. Then they spotted the peaches and ran over to try one. Then the berries. Then a ripe tomato that burst with flavor in their mouth. Each thing they tasted was more delicious than anything they could remember. But something strange began to happen. Even though the child kept eating, they didn't feel satisfied. Instead, they felt more and more eager to try the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. "Teacher," the child said, wiping juice from their face, "I've eaten so much, but I still want more. Why don't I feel full?" "Sit with me," the teacher said, patting the grass beside a strawberry patch. "Let me tell you about the hungry ghost." The child sat down, still holding a plum in one hand and eyeing a bunch of grapes nearby. Long ago, there lived a spirit called the hungry ghost. This ghost had a huge empty belly that was always rumbling with hunger. But here's the strange part. The hungry ghost had a throat as thin as a needle. No matter how much it tried to eat, only tiny bits could fit through its narrow throat. So it was always hungry, always desperate for more, always suffering even though it was surrounded by food. The child looked down at their hands, still sticky with fruit juice. "That sounds awful, but I have a normal throat. Why don't I feel full?" "Because there are different kinds of hunger," the teacher explained. "Your stomach might be full, but there's another kind of hunger that food can't satisfy. It's the hunger for more and more and more, no matter what we already have." The child thought about this, watching ants carry tiny crumbs across the garden path. The ants took only what they needed and carried it away, working together, never seeming greedy or desperate. "Have you ever gotten a new toy that you really, really wanted?" the teacher asked. "Yes. Last year I wanted a toy castle more than anything. I thought about it every day. I drew pictures of it. I dreamed about it at night. And when you finally got it, how did you feel?" The child's face lit up with the memory. "I was so happy. It was the best day ever. I played with it all morning and... Their voice grew quieter. "And by the afternoon, I was already looking at the toy store catalog, thinking about what I wanted next." "Exactly," the teacher nodded. "That toy castle didn't stop being wonderful. But somehow, the happiness of having it faded quickly, and your mind jumped to the next thing you didn't have yet." The child picked a dandelion and watched its seeds float away on the breeze. "Why does that happen? Why can't we just stay happy with what we have?" "Let me show you something," the teacher said, standing up. They walked to a part of the garden where someone had planted a beautiful flower bed, but weeds had started growing between the flowers. "Do you see these weeds?" "Yes, they're choking the flowers." These weeds are like the wanting that grows in our minds. When we get something we want, we feel happy for a little while. That's like planting a flower. But very quickly, new wants start growing. What if I had a bigger one? What if I had a different color? What if I had two instead of one? These wanting thoughts are like weeds. They grow so fast and so thick that they choke out our happiness. The child knelt down and gently pulled a weed from between two roses. So wanting things makes us unhappy? Not exactly, the teacher said carefully. It's natural to have preferences and to enjoy nice things. The problem comes when we believe that getting the next thing will finally make us feel complete and satisfied. But it never does, because as soon as we get it, our mind creates a new want. The teacher picked up a bucket that was sitting by the garden path. It had a small hole in the bottom. Watch this. They filled the bucket with water from the fountain, but the water immediately began dripping out through the hole. No matter how much water I put in this bucket, it keeps draining out. I could spend all day filling it, but it would never stay full. This is what happens when we think happiness comes from getting more and more things. The child watched the water drip, drip, drip onto the thirsty ground. So how do we fix the hole? Now that's the right question. We fix it by understanding where true satisfaction comes from. Let me tell you about candy. Candy? The child perked up. Yes? Imagine eating a piece of candy. It tastes sweet and delicious for a moment, doesn't it? Yes. But does that piece of candy give you energy? Does it help you grow strong? Does it make your body feel good an hour later? The child thought about the times they'd eaten too much candy at birthday parties. No. Actually, it makes my stomach hurt if I eat too much, and then I feel tired and cranky. Exactly. Candy gives you a quick burst of sweetness, but it doesn't nourish you. Always wanting more things is like eating candy for every meal. It might feel good for a moment, but it leaves you feeling empty, tired, and sick. They walked past rows of vegetables growing strong and healthy in the rich soil. But these vegetables, they might not taste as exciting as candy. They take longer to grow, longer to prepare, longer to appreciate. But they actually nourish you. They give you real strength and real health. So wanting things is like candy, but being happy with what we have is like vegetables? The teacher laughed warmly. In a way, yes. But let me tell you what happens when we're always chasing the next thing we want. We never actually enjoy what we have right now. They sat down under an apple tree heavy with fruit. The child noticed that even though they'd eaten several pieces of fruit earlier, they hadn't really tasted any of them. They'd been too busy thinking about the next thing to try. There was once a merchant who traveled from town to town, the teacher began. He would sell his goods and make money, but he was never satisfied. He always thought, if I just make a little more money, then I'll be happy. Then I'll have enough. So one year he made twice as much money as before. Do you think he was happy? The child shook their head. He probably just wanted even more. Right again, he made more and more money each year, but he never felt like it was enough. He couldn't enjoy his nice house because he was busy wanting a bigger one. He couldn't appreciate his healthy children because he was stressed about making more money. He couldn't taste his food because his mind was always planning his next business trip. That's sad, the child said quietly. Yes, it is. But the saddest part is that he never realized he already had everything he needed to be happy. A safe home, healthy children, food to eat, friends who cared about him. All the things that truly matter were already there. But he couldn't see them because his eyes were always focused on what he didn't have yet. The child picked a blade of grass and twirled it between their fingers. So the second truth is that always wanting more makes us unhappy. Close, the teacher said. The second truth is that our suffering and dissatisfaction come from a kind of thirst or craving that can never be satisfied by getting more things. It's like trying to quench your thirst by drinking salt water. It just makes you thirstier. But teacher, How can we stop wanting things? I still want toys and treats and fun things. And that's perfectly natural. You don't have to stop enjoying nice things or stop having hopes and dreams. What you need to understand is the difference between healthy wanting and the kind of wanting that makes you suffer. The teacher held up one finger. Healthy wanting says, it would be nice to have that toy. If I get it, wonderful. If I don't, I can still be happy. It's light, like a bird flying. Then they held up another finger. Unhealthy wanting says, I must have that toy or I won't be happy. I need it right now. Nothing else matters until I get it. It's heavy, like chains around your ankles. The child thought about times they'd begged and pleaded for things, making themselves and everyone around them miserable until they got what they wanted. And how, looking back, those things didn't even seem that important anymore. I think I understand. It's like when I really wanted to win every game at school. I got so angry and upset when I lost that playing games stopped being fun. But my friend Maya, she tries her best, but she doesn't get upset when she loses. She actually seems to have more fun playing than I do. Perfect example, the teacher beamed. Maya has learned something wise. She enjoys playing and trying her best, but she doesn't think she needs to win to be happy. So she gets to enjoy the whole game, win or lose. They stood and walked through the garden, and now the child saw it differently. Yes, it was full of wonderful fruits and vegetables, but the garden didn't seem desperate or greedy. It simply grew what it grew, offering its abundance without grasping or demanding anything in return. Here's a secret, the teacher whispered, as if sharing the most important thing. The things that bring real happiness, love, friendship, peace, kindness, wonder at the beauty around us, none of these come from getting more stuff. They come from opening our hearts to what's already here. Like right now, the child said slowly. I'm in this beautiful garden, talking with you, learning important things. If I spent this whole time wishing I was somewhere else or wanting something different, I'd miss how special this moment is. The teacher's eyes sparkled with joy. You understand. That's exactly it. Every moment you spend wishing things were different is a moment you miss experiencing what's actually happening. They walked to the garden gate, and the child looked back at all the abundant fruit, the overflowing vegetable patches, the richness of the summer garden. But now they understood, having all that abundance didn't make the garden happy. The garden just grew and offered its gifts freely, without needing anything in return. There's one more thing, the teacher said as they prepared to leave. Do you know what happens when we stop constantly chasing after more and more? What? We finally have energy to notice and appreciate what we already have. It's like, imagine you're running so fast trying to catch butterflies that you never actually see them. But when you stop running and sit quietly, the butterflies come to you. The child smiled, remembering a day in spring when they'd sat very still in the grass and a butterfly had landed right on their knee. They'd been so amazed, so present in that moment, not wanting anything except to appreciate that tiny miracle. So the second truth is that always wanting more makes us tired and unhappy, but appreciating what we have brings real peace. Yes, the teacher said, and when you understand this truth, you become free. Free from the exhausting chase for the next thing. Free to enjoy what's here right now. Free to discover that you already have so much to be grateful for. As they walked away from the Garden of Summer, the child felt lighter. They thought about all the things they'd been wanting lately. Newer toys, different clothes, more sweets. and realized that none of those things would fill the real hunger in their heart. What filled that hunger was this moment, this walk, this learning, this growing understanding of how life really worked. The path ahead curved into shadows and moonlight, leading them toward the third garden. But for now, the child was content to simply walk, to feel the earth beneath their feet, to appreciate the teacher's presence beside them, and to understand that this moment, just as it was already complete. Chapter 4. The Peaceful Lake, Autumn. The path led them down now, descending from the summer garden's hill into a valley where the air grew cooler and smelled of fallen leaves and rich earth. Golden and red leaves drifted past them on the gentle breeze, dancing like little flames in the moonlight. "We're entering autumn now," the teacher said softly. "The season of letting go and finding peace." Soon they came to a garden unlike any the child had seen before. This one wasn't filled with flowers or fruit trees. Instead, at its center lay a perfectly still lake, smooth as glass, reflecting the moon and stars so clearly that it looked like the sky had fallen to earth. Around the lake, trees stood with branches nearly bare, their leaves carpeting the ground in shades of amber, crimson, and gold. Everything felt quiet here, peaceful, like the whole world was taking a deep, restful breath. "Welcome to the Garden of Autumn," the teacher whispered, not wanting to disturb the profound silence. "This is where we learn the third truth, that peace is always available to us, right here, right now." They walked slowly toward the lake's edge, their footsteps soft on the fallen leaves. The child stared at the water, mesmerized by its perfect stillness. Every star was reflected there, every branch, every cloud. The lake was like a mirror, showing the truth of everything. "Teacher," the child whispered, "the water is so still. How does it stay so calm?" "Watch," the teacher said, picking up a small stone. They tossed it gently into the lake. Ripples spread out in perfect circles, disturbing the mirror-like surface. The reflections wobbled and distorted. The stars seemed to dance and scatter. But then, as they watched together, the ripples grew smaller and smaller. The water settled, the surface smoothed, and within moments, the lake was perfectly still again, reflecting everything clearly once more. The lake didn't have to work hard to become calm again, the teacher said. Stillness is the lake's natural state. The ripples came and went, but underneath, the deep water was always peaceful. The child knelt by the water's edge, looking at their own reflection. Is that like us? Do we have stillness inside too? Yes, the teacher smiled. Deep inside you, beneath all your thoughts and worries and wants and fears, there is a place of perfect peace. It's always been there. It will always be there. But sometimes we forget about it because the surface of our minds gets so choppy and disturbed. The teacher sat on a smooth rock and invited the child to sit beside them. Let me tell you about a little girl who discovered this truth. The child settled in close, pulling their knees up to their chest, listening. This little girl had a very busy mind. It was always jumping from thought to thought, like a monkey swinging from branch to branch. She would worry about tomorrow. She would think about yesterday. She would imagine problems that might happen. She would replay conversations over and over. Her mind never seemed to rest. I know what that feels like, the child said quietly. Sometimes at night I can't sleep because my brain won't be quiet. Exactly. This girl felt the same way. She felt tired all the time, not because her body was tired, but because her mind never stopped racing. Then one day, her grandmother taught her something magical. What did she teach her? Her grandmother said, "Your mind is like this lake in autumn. Right now, the wind is blowing and creating waves on the surface. But if you stop feeding the wind, if you stop adding more thoughts, more worries, more questions, the wind dies down naturally. And when the wind stops, the lake becomes calm all by itself." The child watched as another leaf fell onto the lake's surface, creating tiny ripples that quickly disappeared. How do you stop feeding the wind? You notice your thoughts, but you don't chase after them. Imagine each thought is like a cloud in the sky. You can watch it float by without grabbing onto it or climbing inside it. You just let it pass. The teacher pointed to the sky where clouds were drifting across the moon. See those clouds? They come and they go. You don't try to hold on to them or push them away. You just watch them move across the sky. Your thoughts can be like that too. But some thoughts are really loud, the child said. Like when I'm angry or scared, those thoughts feel so big and important. They do feel that way, don't they? But here's something wonderful to understand. Watch the lake again. The teacher picked up another stone, this time a bigger one, and threw it into the water. It made a much bigger splash, larger ripples that seemed to disturb the whole surface. That's like a big, loud thought, anger or fear or worry. It makes big waves, but watch, just watch what happens. They sat together in silence, watching as even these larger ripples gradually grew smaller and smaller. The water settled. The calmness returned. The lake didn't have to fight the ripples or push them away. It simply allowed them to be, and naturally, peacefully, they faded. Underneath those big waves, was the deep water ever really disturbed? The child thought about this. No. I guess the deep water stayed deep and calm. Only the surface was moving. Yes, that's the secret. Your angry thoughts, your worried thoughts, your excited thoughts, they're all on the surface. They're real, and it's okay to have them. But underneath, there's a deeper you that's always calm, always peaceful, always okay. The teacher stood and walked along the lake's edge, the child following. When that little girl learned this, she started practicing something. Whenever her mind got really busy and choppy, she would imagine herself sinking down, down, down below the waves into the deep, calm water underneath. How did she do that? She would sit very still and take slow breaths. With each breath out, she imagined sinking a little deeper, past the busy surface thoughts, down into the quiet space inside. And do you know what she discovered? What? That the peace was always there, waiting for her. She didn't have to create it or earn it or find it somewhere far away. It was right there inside her all along, just like the calm, deep water is always under the lake, even when the surface is stormy. The child sat very still, trying to feel that deep, calm place inside themselves. At first, all they noticed were thoughts. Thoughts about the story, thoughts about the lake, thoughts about what they'd learned so far. But then, in between the thoughts, they felt something else. A space. A quiet. Like a door opening to a peaceful room they'd never noticed before. "I think I can feel it," they whispered, almost afraid that speaking would make it go away. "It's always there," the teacher said softly. "Even when you're at school and things are noisy, even when you're upset or excited or confused, even when you forget all about it for days and weeks, that peaceful place inside you never goes away. You can always come back to it." They walked around the lake, their footsteps quiet on the carpet of fallen leaves. An owl hooted somewhere in the trees, a sound that somehow made the silence even deeper. Teacher, in the first garden, we learned that everything changes. In the second garden, we learned that always wanting more makes us tired. And now in this garden, we're learning that peace is already inside us? Yes. And do you see how these truths work together? The child thought carefully. Well, if I remember that everything changes, I don't have to be so scared or hold on so tight. And if I stop always wanting more, my mind gets less busy and choppy. And when my mind is less busy, I can find that peaceful place inside. Perfect, the teacher beamed. You're understanding how it all fits together. Each truth helps you with the others. They reached a small wooden dock that stretched out over the water. They walked to the end and sat down, their legs dangling above the glassy surface. The moon made a silver path across the lake, stretching right to where they sat. There's something else important about this peaceful place inside you, the teacher said. When you find it, when you rest in it, you start to see everything more clearly. It's like when the lake is calm, you can see all the way to the bottom. You can see the fish swimming, the rocks, the plants growing. But when the surface is all choppy and disturbed, you can't see anything clearly. So, when my mind is calm, I can think better? Yes, but it's more than that. You can see situations more clearly. You can understand people better. You can make wiser choices. You can feel what's really important versus what just seems urgent or exciting in the moment. A fish jumped in the lake, making a gentle splash. Then everything was still again. The child watched the ripples fade. The little girl from the story, the child asked, did she ever get upset or worried again after she learned about the calm, deep water? Oh yes, of course she did. Finding your inner peace doesn't mean you never have feelings or thoughts. It means you know there's always a calm place you can return to. It means you don't get so lost in the storms. You remember, oh, this is just weather on the surface. The deep water is still there, still calm, still me. The child nodded, understanding. It's like having a safe place to go inside yourself. Exactly. And the more you visit that place, the easier it becomes to find it. At first, you might only notice it when everything around you is quiet, like now. But with practice, you can find it even in the middle of chaos. Even in a noisy classroom or a scary situation or when you're feeling big emotions. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just breathing, just being, just noticing the profound peace of the autumn garden. The child realized that for these past few minutes, they hadn't been thinking about tomorrow or yesterday. They hadn't been wanting anything different. They had just been here, now, present with the lake and the teacher and the quiet. And it felt wonderful. This is the third truth, the teacher said finally. That suffering can end, that peace is possible, that it's not some faraway thing you have to search the whole world to find. It's right here, right now, inside you, waiting to be noticed. But teacher, the child said, a question forming. If peace is always inside us, and if we can always find it, then how? How do we remember to look for it? How do we live in a way that helps us stay connected to that calm, deep water? The teacher stood, offering a hand to help the child up. Ah, now you're asking exactly the right question, and that's what the fourth garden will teach you. Are you ready to see it? The child took the teacher's hand and stood, looking back one more time at the peaceful lake. They wanted to remember this. The perfect stillness, the clear reflections, the sense of deep, abiding peace underneath everything. "Yes," they said, "I'm ready." As they walked away from the Garden of Autumn, the child felt different, calmer, like they'd discovered a secret treasure that no one could ever take away. The peace was always there, always available, always waiting to be noticed, like the calm, deep water under even the stormiest surface. Chapter 5. The Path Through the Forest. Winter. The path led them into a forest where the trees stood bare and beautiful against the starlit sky. Everything here was stripped down to essentials. No leaves, no flowers, just the honest elegance of branches and bark and the clean, cold truth of winter. "This is the final garden," the teacher said, "though it looks more like a forest, doesn't it? This is the Garden of Winter, where we learn the fourth and final truth, the path that leads to lasting happiness." Snow began to fall gently, each flake perfect and unique, drifting down like tiny white feathers. The world grew even quieter, muffled by the soft blanket of snow beginning to cover everything. Ahead, the child could hear the sound of running water. As they walked deeper into the winter forest, they came upon a stream, its water crystal clear and flowing swiftly over smooth stones. "Do you see those stones?" the teacher asked, pointing to 8 large flat stones that created a path across the stream. The child nodded, seeing how the stones made a way to cross from one side to the other. Each of these stones represents one part of the path to true happiness. Together, they make what we call the Eightfold Path. It's not a path you walk just once. It's a way of living, a way of being in the world that brings peace to yourself and everyone around you. The teacher stepped onto the first stone, stable and secure despite the rushing water. "Come, let's cross together. I'll tell you what each stone means." The child stepped carefully onto the first stone beside the teacher. It felt solid under their feet, steady despite the flowing current. "This first stone is called right understanding," the teacher said. "It means seeing things clearly, the way they really are. Remember what you learned in the first 3 gardens? That everything changes, that craving causes suffering, and that peace is always available inside you? Right understanding means keeping these truths in your mind and heart, letting them guide how you see the world." The child thought about this. "So it's like wearing glasses that help me see clearly. Yes, perfect. Without right understanding, we stumble around confused, bumping into problems. But when we understand how life really works, we can move through it with wisdom." They stepped together to the second stone. The water rushed around them, cold and clear, but the stone held firm. "This second stone is right intention," the teacher continued. "It means choosing good purposes in your heart. It means wanting kindness instead of cruelty, wanting to help instead of hurt, wanting freedom instead of greed. It's about what you aim for in your life." "Like choosing what kind of person I want to be?" Exactly. Every day you plant seeds with your intentions. If you plant seeds of kindness, kindness grows. If you plant seeds of anger, anger grows. Right intention means being careful about what you plant in the garden of your heart. The third stone awaited them. They stepped onto it together, and the child noticed how each stone seemed to lead naturally to the next. "This third stone is right speech," the teacher said. "It means speaking in ways that help, not hurt, speaking truth, not lies, speaking kindly, not cruelly, and also knowing when silence is wiser than words." The child remembered times they'd said mean things when angry, and how those words had hurt their friends and made them feel bad too. "So before I speak, I should think about whether my words will help or hurt. Yes, there's an old saying, before you speak, Ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If you can answer yes to all 3, then speak. If not, perhaps silence is better. They moved to the 4th stone. The water here swirled in interesting patterns, creating little whirlpools that disappeared and reappeared. This 4th stone is right action, the teacher said. It means doing things that help rather than harm, being gentle with all living creatures, not taking what isn't given to you, acting in ways that you'd be proud to tell others about. Like treating people the way I want to be treated? Yes, and even more. It means thinking about how your actions affect everyone and everything, not just people, but animals, plants, the earth itself. Every action is like dropping a stone in a pond. The ripples spread out and touch things far away. Right action means being aware of the ripples you create. The 5th stone was slightly smaller than the others, but just as sturdy. They stepped onto it carefully. This 5th stone is right livelihood, the teacher explained. It means finding work or activities that help the world, not harm it. It means earning your way through life by doing things that bring good into the world. But I'm just a child. I don't have work yet. Right livelihood applies to you too. Even now, you can think about how you spend your time. Do your activities help you grow and help others? Or do they just waste time and energy? Even choosing what games to play or how to spend your day is a form of right livelihood. They stepped to the 6th stone. They were more than halfway across the stream now, and the child could see the far bank clearly ahead. This 6th stone is right effort, the teacher said. It means trying, but not too hard, not giving up, but not exhausting yourself either. It's like tuning a musical instrument, not too tight, not too loose, but just right. How do I know what's just right? You feel it in your body and heart. When you're trying too hard, you feel tense and tired and stressed. When you're not trying enough, you feel lazy and bored and restless. Right effort is the middle way, steady, patient, persistent, but also gentle and kind to yourself. The 7th stone was darker than the others, smooth and gleaming in the moonlight. This 7th stone is right mindfulness, the teacher said. It means paying attention to what's happening right now, not lost in thoughts about yesterday or tomorrow, but awake and aware in this present moment. Like when I was watching the lake and I wasn't thinking about anything else. Exactly. Right mindfulness means noticing your thoughts without getting lost in them. Noticing your feelings without being controlled by them. Being aware of your body, your breath, the world around you. It means being fully alive in each moment instead of sleepwalking through life. Finally, they stepped onto the 8th and final stone. From here, the far bank was just one small step away. This 8th stone is right concentration, the teacher said. It means training your mind to be focused and calm. When you practice right concentration, your mind becomes like the peaceful lake, able to reflect everything clearly, not scattered or confused. How do I practice that? By sitting quietly and watching your breath, by focusing on one thing at a time instead of trying to do everything at once, by returning your attention to the present moment whenever it wanders away. It's like training a puppy, gentle, patient, but consistent. They stepped off the final stone onto the far bank, and the child turned to look back at the 8 stones they'd crossed. From this side, they could see how the stones created a perfect path across the rushing water. These 8 stones work together, the teacher said. They support each other. When you practice right speech, it helps you with right action. When you develop right mindfulness, it makes right understanding clearer. They're all connected, like the branches of a tree all growing from the same trunk. The child sat down on a fallen log dusted with snow, thinking about everything they'd learned. So the fourth truth is that there's a path we can follow that leads to happiness, and these 8 stones show us the way? Yes. And the beautiful thing is that you don't have to be perfect at all 8 things at once. You just take one step at a time, one stone at a time. Maybe today you focus on speaking more kindly. Tomorrow you pay more attention to your actions. Slowly, gently, you learn to walk this path. And if I fall off, if I mess up and say something mean or do something wrong, then you simply step back onto the path. You don't have to feel guilty or ashamed. You just notice what happened, learn from it, and return to the path. That's part of right effort, being patient and kind with yourself as you learn and grow. They walked deeper into the winter forest, following a narrow trail between snow-covered trees. Everything was peaceful and still, the only sound their footsteps and their breathing. "Let me tell you about a monk who walked this path," the teacher said. "He wasn't perfect. Sometimes he got angry. Sometimes he said things he regretted. Sometimes he forgot to be mindful and got lost in worries. But every time he noticed he'd wandered off the path, he gently brought himself back. What happened to him? Over time, something wonderful happened. The path became easier. Not because life stopped being difficult, but because he got better at walking it. Right speech became more natural. Right action became more automatic. His mind grew calmer. His heart grew kinder. And he discovered something amazing. What? He discovered that walking the path wasn't something he had to force himself to do. It became who he was. The path and the walker became one. He wasn't trying to be good, he was simply being good. He wasn't trying to be peaceful. He was peace itself. The child stood up and walked in a small circle through the snow, thinking deeply. So these 8 stones, they're not rules someone is forcing me to follow. They're more like a map to help me find my way. Yes, they're instructions for how to live in a way that brings happiness to yourself and others. They're not about being perfect or never making mistakes. They're about choosing again and again to walk in a direction that leads toward peace, kindness, and wisdom. They came to a clearing in the forest where moonlight shone down through the bare branches, creating patterns of light and shadow on the pristine snow. In the center of the clearing stood a small shrine, simple and beautiful. "This is the heart of the winter garden," the teacher said, "a place to remember that the path is always here, always available, always waiting for you to walk it." The child approached the shrine and saw that it held a small mirror. When they looked into it, they saw their own face, but something seemed different. They looked peaceful, wiser, more awake than before. "That's you," the teacher said softly, "when you walk the path. That's who you truly are underneath all the confusion and wanting and fear. That person in the mirror, peaceful, wise, kind, that's who you've always been. The path just helps you remember." They stood together in the clearing, snow falling gently around them, and the child felt all 4 truths settling into their heart like seeds finding soil. Everything changes, so appreciate each moment. Craving causes suffering, so find contentment in what is. Peace is always available. It lives inside you, waiting to be found. And there is a path, 8 simple steps that lead you home to your true self. "Teacher," the child said quietly, "I think I understand now. The meaning of life isn't just one answer. It's all of these truths working together. It's learning to walk this path with wisdom and kindness, knowing that peace is always available, accepting that things change, and letting go of always wanting more. The teacher's eyes shone with joy. You have learned well, little one, but our journey isn't quite over. We have 3 more gardens to visit, places where we'll go even deeper into understanding how all of this works and what it means for how you live your life. I'm ready, the child said, and they meant it. They felt different now, as if they'd been given a precious gift, not something from outside themselves, but the recognition of treasures they'd carried inside all along. As they prepared to leave the winter forest, the child took one last look at the 8 stones crossing the stream. They knew they would remember this image forever, a clear path through rushing water, steady stones to guide their way, and the promise that no matter how swift or turbulent life might become, there was always a way to cross safely to the other side. The path was there. It would always be there. And now they knew how to walk it. Part 3. Walking the Gentle Path. Chapter 6. Right Understanding, Seeing Clearly. As they left the winter forest, the world around them began to change. The seasons seemed to blend together now. Spring flowers bloomed beside autumn leaves. Summer fruit hung near winter snow. It was as if they had entered a place beyond ordinary time, where all possibilities existed together. This is the place where we practice, the teacher said. Here, we learn not just about the path, but how to walk it step by step. We begin with the first stone, right understanding. They came to a small cottage with a garden where an old woman sat on her porch, squinting at something in her hands. She looked frustrated, holding the object close to her face, then far away, then close again. "Excuse me," the teacher called gently. "Is everything all right?" The old woman looked up with tired eyes. "Oh, hello there. I'm trying to read this letter from my granddaughter, but the words are all blurry. They swim around on the page like little fish. I can't make sense of any of it." The teacher smiled kindly. "Have you tried glasses?" "Glasses?" The woman laughed bitterly. "What good would glasses do? My eyes are just old and worn out." "May I?" The teacher reached into their robe and pulled out a pair of simple glasses. "Sometimes we see things more clearly than we think we can." The old woman hesitated, then put on the glasses. Immediately, her face transformed. Her eyes widened with wonder and joy. "Oh my, I can see. The words are clear as daylight. My granddaughter says she's getting married in the spring." Tears of happiness rolled down her cheeks. As they walked away, leaving the woman happily reading her letter, the child asked, "Teacher, why didn't she try glasses before?" "Because she thought her problem was something else. She thought her eyes were broken beyond repair. But sometimes we just need the right tools to see clearly. Right understanding is like glasses for your mind and heart." They sat down under a large tree whose branches held leaves from all 4 seasons. "Let me show you what I mean," the teacher said. "Tell me, what do you see when you look at that spider web in the corner of the tree?" The child looked up and saw a beautiful web stretched between 2 branches, dewdrops making it sparkle like diamonds. "I see a spider web. It's pretty." "Look closer. What is the web made of?" Tiny strings, all connected together?" "Yes. And what happens if I touch one strand here?" The teacher gently touched a single thread of the web with a blade of grass. The entire web vibrated. Every strand moved. The spider at the center immediately felt the vibration and came running to see what had happened. "The whole web moved when you touched just one part," the child observed. "Exactly. This is how everything in the world really works. Everything is connected to everything else, like strands in an invisible web. When you do something kind, it touches other people, who then do kind things for others, who touch even more people. The kindness spreads through the web of connection. The child thought about this. So when I help my friend with their homework, that might make them happy, and then they might be nicer to their little sister, and then she might be nicer to someone else? Perfect. You're seeing clearly now. But it works with unkind things too. When someone is mean, it can spread through the web just like kindness does. Understanding this connection helps us choose our actions more wisely. They walked through a meadow where wildflowers of all colors grew together, not in separate patches, but all mixed up, each type of flower seeming to help the others grow stronger and more beautiful. Right. Understanding means seeing that you're not separate from the world around you, the teacher continued. You're part of the web. The air you breathe was breathed by trees. The water you drink has been rain and rivers and oceans. The food you eat came from soil and sunshine. You're made of the same elements as the stars. That makes me feel bigger somehow, and smaller at the same time. Yes, bigger because you're part of something vast and wonderful. Smaller because you realize you're not the only important thing in the world. Both feelings are true, and both are beautiful. They came to a small pond where a child was throwing breadcrumbs to the fish. But this child was crying, throwing the bread harder and harder. "Why are you crying?" the teacher asked gently. "Because I fed the fish yesterday and they still look hungry today," the child sobbed. "I thought if I fed them once they'd be happy forever. But they're hungry again. Nothing I do makes any difference." The teacher sat down beside the upset child. "You're learning something important about how the world works. Feeding the fish once doesn't solve their hunger forever. But that doesn't mean your kindness doesn't matter." "It doesn't?" "Look at the fish when you throw the food. Do they swim to you eagerly? Do they seem happy and healthy?" The child watched as the fish swam up to catch the floating crumbs. "Yes, they do seem happy right now." Your kindness matters in this moment, and tomorrow when you feed them again, it will matter in that moment too. Right understanding means knowing that we help the world one moment at a time, one kind action at a time. We don't solve everything forever, but we make right now a little better. As they continued walking, the child asked, "So right understanding is like having clear glasses that help me see how everything is connected, and how my actions matter even if they don't fix everything permanently?" Beautiful. And there's one more important thing right understanding helps you see. It helps you understand why people behave the way they do. What do you mean? Have you ever known someone who was mean or grumpy most of the time? The child nodded, thinking of a classmate who often said cruel things. Right. Understanding helps you see that when people are mean, it's usually because they're hurting inside. Happy, peaceful people don't go around trying to hurt others. When someone is unkind, it's like they have a splinter in their heart that makes them feel pain. The meanness is how that pain comes out. So, I don't have to take it personally? Exactly. You can protect yourself from their meanness without hating them for it. You can even feel compassion for their pain while staying safe from their hurtful actions. They paused by a clear stream where they could see all the way to the bottom. Fish swam peacefully among smooth stones, and water plants swayed gently in the current. "This is what right understanding gives you," the teacher said, gesturing to the clear water. "The ability to see through to the truth of things. to see how actions create consequences, how everything is connected, how kindness creates more kindness, and how understanding creates more understanding. Chapter 7. Right Intention, Pure Heart. They followed the stream until it led them to the most beautiful garden yet. This garden was tended by a gentle gardener with soil-stained hands and a peaceful smile. Unlike the other gardens they'd visited, this one had no weeds at all. Every plant seemed perfectly placed. Every flower bloomed with unusual radiance. "Good evening," the gardener called to them. "Welcome to the Garden of Intentions. Everything that grows here comes from seeds that were planted with pure love and care." "Your garden is extraordinary," the teacher said. "How do you keep it so beautiful?" The gardener wiped their hands on their apron and sat down on a small wooden stool. "I learned long ago that the secret isn't in the soil or the water or the sunlight. The secret is in the intention with which you plant each seed." The child was fascinated. "What do you mean?" "Come, I'll show you." The gardener led them to a patch of freshly turned earth. "I have 2 packets of flower seeds. They're exactly the same type of flower. But watch what happens when we plant them with different intentions." The gardener took a seed from the first packet. "I'm planting this seed because I want people to see how beautiful my garden is. I want them to admire my work and think I'm clever." They pushed the seed into the soil. Then they took a seed from the second packet. "I'm planting this seed because I want to bring beauty into the world. I want to create something that will make people happy when they see it, that will give bees nectar and birds a place to rest." They planted this seed with obvious care and love. "But they're the same seeds," the child said, confused. "Ah, but they were planted with very different hearts. Let me tell you what happened in another garden where I tried this same experiment." The gardener sat back down and began their story. The first seed, the one planted with selfish intention, did grow. But the flower it produced was ordinary. It bloomed for a short time, needed lots of attention, and then withered quickly. It brought me no real joy even when people admired it, because I knew I had planted it for the wrong reasons. And the second seed? The second seed grew into the most magnificent flower I'd ever seen. It bloomed longer, attracted more butterflies and bees, seemed to make everyone who saw it smile. And when people admired it, I felt genuine joy because I knew it had been planted with love. The teacher nodded knowingly. This is right intention. It means checking your heart before you act. Why are you doing what you're doing? What do you hope will grow from your actions? The child sat cross-legged on the grass, thinking, so it's not enough to do good things. I need to do them for good reasons? Yes, because your intention is like the soil in which your actions grow. Good actions planted with selfish intentions don't flourish the same way as good actions planted with love. The gardener stood and walked them through the garden, pointing out different plants. See this patch of vegetables? I planted these with the intention of feeding hungry people. They've produced more food than any vegetable patch I've ever grown. And these flowers? These I planted with the intention of bringing beauty and peace to anyone who might walk through the garden. Look how they seem to glow with their own inner light. They came to a small section that looked different from the rest. The plants here were struggling, some wilting despite having enough water and sunlight. What happened here? The child asked. The gardener looked a bit embarrassed. I planted these when I was feeling angry at my neighbor. I thought if I had the most beautiful garden on the street, it would show them up. The plants can feel the difference. They're not thriving because they were planted with a bitter heart. But you're taking care of them now? Yes, I water them and tend them like all the others. And slowly, as I've changed my intention toward them, as I've started caring for them out of love rather than competition, they're beginning to recover. The teacher picked a small wildflower and handed it to the child. Right intention means cultivating 3 kinds of intentions in your heart. First, the intention of goodwill, wanting good things for all beings, even people you don't know or don't particularly like. Even people who are mean to me, especially people who are mean to you. This doesn't mean letting them hurt you or pretending their meanness is okay. It means wishing that they could find happiness and peace so they wouldn't need to be mean anymore. They sat in a circle of particularly beautiful roses, their fragrance sweet in the evening air. The second kind of right intention is non-harming. The teacher continued, this means genuinely not wanting to cause pain or damage to any living being, not just avoiding harmful actions, but actually cultivating a heart that desires the well-being of all life. The child watched a bee working among the roses, taking nectar without damaging the flowers. Like the bee, it takes what it needs, but doesn't hurt the flower. Perfect example. The bee and the flower help each other. That's the kind of relationship right intention wants to create with the world, mutually beneficial, not taking more than you need, not causing unnecessary harm. What's the third kind? The third is the intention of letting go. This means genuinely wanting to be free from greed, hatred, and the kind of confusion that makes us act foolishly. It means intending to grow in wisdom and compassion. A family of rabbits hopped through the garden, and the gardener smiled at them without any annoyance, even though the child could see they'd nibbled some of the vegetables. I used to get upset when animals ate my plants, the gardener said, noticing the child watching. But then I realized I planted this garden with the intention of supporting life. The rabbits are life too. Now I plant extra so there's enough for everyone. The child stood and walked among the plants, touching leaves gently, watching butterflies move from flower to flower. So right intention is like choosing what kind of seeds I plant in my heart. Yes, the teacher and gardener said together. Every day you plant seeds with your intentions, the gardener explained. If you help someone because you want them to think you're wonderful, you plant seeds of pride. If you help someone because you genuinely care about their well-being, you plant seeds of love. Both actions look the same from the outside, but they grow very different things in your heart. The child thought about times they'd done nice things to get praise, and other times they'd helped simply because it felt right. I can feel the difference inside myself. When I do something just to look good, it feels empty somehow. But when I do something because I really care, it feels warm and full. That's right intention working, the teacher smiled. Your heart knows the difference, even when others can't see it. They prepared to leave the garden, and the gardener gave the child a small packet of seeds. These are kindness seeds, the gardener said with a twinkle in their eye. Plant them with pure intention wherever you go. They'll grow into whatever your heart needs most. As they walked away, the child clutched the packet of seeds and understood something important. Every thought they chose, every action they took, every word they spoke was like planting a seed. And the intention behind it would determine what kind of garden their life became. Chapter 8. Right Speech. Words like music. The path led them to a village where something magical was happening. As they walked down the main street, they could hear music floating from every doorway, but it wasn't coming from instruments. It was coming from the way people spoke to each other. "Good evening, Maria," called the baker to a woman walking by. "I hope your mother is feeling better." His words sounded like gentle flute music. "Much better, thank you, Giuseppe," she replied, her voice like soft bells ringing. "Your kindness in asking means more than you know." Even the children playing in the street seemed to speak in harmonies. "Would you like to join our game?" they asked each other. "That was a wonderful try. Let me help you up." The child looked around in wonder. "Teacher, why does everyone's voice sound like music?" "This is the village of right speech," the teacher explained. "Here, people have learned that words are like musical notes. When chosen carefully and spoken with love, they create beautiful melodies. When spoken carelessly or with meanness, they create noise that hurts everyone's ears." They sat on a bench in the village square, where a fountain bubbled peacefully in the center. An old man was telling a story to a group of children gathered around him, and his words flowed like a gentle river. "Once upon a time," the storyteller said, "there lived a little girl who discovered that her words had magic power. Every kind word she spoke made flowers bloom. Every cruel word made flowers wilt. Every truthful word made the sun shine brighter. Every lie made clouds cover the sky." The children listened with wide eyes, completely captivated. At first, the little girl didn't believe this was real, so she decided to test it. She said something mean to her brother, and immediately, the roses in their garden began to droop. She told a lie to her mother, and clouds covered the sun. She said something kind to a stranger, and daisies sprouted in the cracks of the sidewalk. One of the listening children raised her hand. What did the girl do when she realized her words had real power? The storyteller smiled. She became very careful about what she said. Before speaking, she would ask herself, "Will these words plant flowers or make them wilt? Will they bring sunshine or clouds?" The teacher leaned over and whispered to the child, "The secret is, all of our words have this kind of power. We just can't always see the flowers blooming or wilting right away." After the story ended, they walked through the village, listening to the musical conversations around them. "How do they do it?" the child asked. "How do they make their words sound so beautiful?" "Let's find out," the teacher said, approaching a woman who was hanging laundry on a line. Her conversation with her neighbor had sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Excuse me," the teacher said politely. "We're travelers learning about right speech. Your words sound so beautiful. Could you teach us how you speak this way?" The woman smiled warmly. "Oh, it's quite simple, really. My grandmother taught me the 4 gates that every word must pass through before leaving my mouth." "4 gates?" "Yes. Before I speak any word, I ask it to pass through each gate. The first gate asks, 'Is it true?' If the word is not true, it cannot pass through to be spoken. The second gate asks, 'Is it necessary?' Sometimes words are true but don't need to be said. If they're not necessary, they wait outside the gate. The third gate asks, 'Is it kind?' Even true and necessary words can be spoken with meanness or with love. Only words wrapped in kindness are allowed through." "And the fourth gate?" the child asked, fascinated. "The fourth gate asks, 'Will it help?' Sometimes words are true, necessary, and kind, but they won't actually help the situation. Those words can wait for a better time or a better way to be expressed." The child thought about this. "So, if I want to tell my friend that they have something stuck in their teeth that's true, necessary, and would help them. But how do I make it kind?" The woman laughed gently. You whisper it privately so they're not embarrassed. You say it with a caring voice. You focus on helping them, not on being right about noticing something wrong. They thanked the woman and continued walking. As they did, they noticed that some people in the village spoke very little, but when they did speak, their words carried special weight and beauty. "There's an old woman who lives at the edge of the village," a shopkeeper told them when they asked about this. "She hardly speaks at all, but when she does, her words are like precious gems. People come from far away just to hear her wisdom." They found the old woman sitting in her garden, surrounded by the most magnificent flowers they'd seen yet. She was so quiet that birds had settled on her shoulders and rabbits had gathered at her feet. "Good evening, grandmother," the teacher said softly, not wanting to disturb the peaceful scene. The old woman looked up with eyes that sparkled with deep wisdom. She didn't speak for a long moment, just smiled at them with such warmth that the child felt immediately loved and welcomed. Finally, she spoke, and her voice was like honey mixed with music. "Good evening, travelers. You seek to understand the power of words?" "Yes," the child said quietly. "Then listen to the silence first," the old woman said, closing her eyes. They sat together in the garden as evening deepened around them. The child listened to the silence and began to notice it wasn't really silent at all. There was the sound of wind in the leaves, insects humming, water trickling somewhere nearby, their own breathing. "Silence is full," the old woman said after several minutes. "It holds space for all the sounds that matter. When you speak into this fullness, make sure your words deserve to take up space that could be filled with this natural music." "How do I know if my words deserve the space?" the child asked. "Ask yourself, do these words heal or wound? Do they connect or separate? Do they bring light or create shadows? The world is already full of noise. Make sure your words add music, not more noise." A young man came hurrying into the garden looking upset. "Grandmother, I'm so angry at my brother. He borrowed my tools and broke them, and now he won't even apologize. I want to tell him exactly what I think of his carelessness." The old woman listened patiently, then spoke gently. "Before you speak to your brother, come sit in the silence with me for just 5 minutes. Let your anger pass through the 4 gates. See if it comes out the other side as the same angry words or as something more helpful." The young man sat down, breathing heavily with frustration. They all sat together in silence. The child watched the man's face gradually relax. His breathing slow down, his shoulders drop. After 5 minutes, the man spoke again. I think instead of yelling at him about being careless, I need to tell him how hurt I feel that he won't acknowledge his mistake, and I need to ask him to help me fix or replace the tools." The old woman nodded approvingly. "Those words will build a bridge instead of a wall." As they prepared to leave, the old woman gave the child a small bell. "Ring this before you speak when you're feeling strong emotions," she said. "Let the sound remind you to pause, to pass your words through the gates, to choose music over noise." Walking away from the village, the child experimented with the bell, ringing it softly and then speaking. They noticed that the pause helped them choose their words more carefully. "Right speech isn't just about being polite," the teacher explained as they walked. "It's about understanding that words have real power to heal or hurt, to create or destroy, to bring people together or drive them apart. And silence can be just as powerful as speaking, sometimes more powerful. There's a time for words and a time for silence. Wisdom is knowing which time is which." Chapter 9. Right Action. Hands that Help. The path led them to a construction site where something extraordinary was happening. Instead of building just one structure, dozens of people were working together to create an entire neighborhood. But these weren't ordinary builders. "Welcome to the village of right action," the teacher said. "Here, people have learned that every action is like dropping a stone into a still pond. The ripples spread out and touch everything." The child watched in fascination as the workers moved with unusual care and intention. A carpenter was building a house, but they stopped frequently to help others with their projects. A woman mixing cement took time to move a caterpillar out of harm's way. Children helped carry supplies, and everyone worked at a pace that seemed both productive and peaceful. The foreman of the project approached them, a tall woman with gentle eyes and strong, calloused hands. "Are you visitors to our village?" she asked with a warm smile. "Would you like to see what we're building?" "We'd love to," the teacher replied. "But first, could you tell us why everyone works so differently here? I've never seen a construction site so peaceful." The foreman laughed. "That's because we learned the secret of right action. Come, let me show you." She led them to a large board where detailed plans were posted. But these weren't just building plans. They were plans that showed how each structure would affect the entire community. "See this house?" She pointed to one of the blueprints. "We didn't just ask, how can we build a house quickly and cheaply? We asked, how can we build a house that will bring the most good into the world?" The child studied the plans. "It looks like a normal house to me." "Look closer. See how it's positioned to shade the community garden during the hottest part of the day? See how the rainwater from the roof is designed to flow into a collection system that waters the shared fruit trees? See how the front porch faces the playground so the person living here can naturally keep an eye on children playing?" The child began to see it. Oh, the house helps the whole neighborhood, not just the person living in it. Exactly. That's right action, considering how your choices affect everyone, not just yourself. They walked over to where a young man was laying bricks for a garden wall. He worked slowly, carefully, checking each brick multiple times before setting it in place. "Why do you take so much time with each brick?" the child asked. The young man paused, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Because this wall needs to last for generations. My great-great-grandchildren might lean against this wall someday. I want it to be strong enough to support them." "That's right action too," the teacher explained, thinking not just about immediate results, but about the long-term effects of what we do. They watched a group of children helping with the project. Unlike adults on most construction sites, these children weren't just getting in the way. They had important jobs: sorting nails, carrying water to workers, sweeping up sawdust. "How do the children know what to do?" the child asked. An elderly man overheard the question. "We taught them the 3 questions of right action. Before doing anything, they ask, will this help or harm? Will this build up or tear down? Will this bring people together or push them apart?" One of the working children, a girl about the same age as the child visiting, came over during her break. She was dirty and tired, but glowing with satisfaction. "I love working here," she said. "At first, I just wanted to help because it looked fun. But then I realized that every nail I sort, every board I carry, every mess I clean up is helping create homes where families will live and be happy. My little actions are part of something big and important." The foreman led them to a shady area where workers were taking a break. "Let me tell you about why we work this way," she said. "A few years ago, I was working on a different construction project. We built houses as fast and cheap as possible. The company made lots of money. The houses sold quickly, but what happened? Within 5 years, the houses started falling apart. The families who lived in them had to spend their savings on repairs. The neighborhood became rundown because we hadn't thought about long-term community needs. My quick, cheap work ended up causing years of problems for dozens of families. That must have felt terrible, the child said with sympathy. It did. But it taught me something crucial about right action. Every action is like planting a seed. I can plant seeds that will grow into problems, or I can plant seeds that will grow into solutions. The choice is mine with every decision I make. They walked through the nearly completed neighborhood, and the child could see the wisdom in every detail. Gardens were placed where they'd get the best sun. Pathways curved naturally to make walking pleasant. Play areas were positioned where they'd be safe, but not isolated. Right action means thinking like the spider web you showed me earlier, the child said to the teacher. Understanding that everything I do affects other people and the world around me. Yes, and there's more to it than that, the teacher replied. They sat on a bench in a small park area that was part of the development. Right action also means being honest about your motivations. It means not harming any living being if you can possibly avoid it. And it means taking only what you need and sharing whatever you can. A group of workers walked by, carrying lunch to share with everyone on the project. The child noticed that they carried extra food, just in case someone needed it. Watch how they share, the teacher pointed out. No one is keeping track of who brought what, or who gets how much. They just make sure everyone is fed. That's right action too? Absolutely. Generosity is one of the most important forms of right action. Not just giving money or things, but giving your time, your attention, your skills, your kindness. A little dog wandered onto the construction site, looking lost and hungry. Instead of shooing it away, the workers stopped to give it water and some food. Someone took time to look for a collar, and when they found none, they asked around to see if anyone knew where the dog belonged. Even our actions toward animals matter? The child asked. All life is connected, the foreman replied, gently petting the dog. This little one might seem unimportant, but kindness to any being ripples out into kindness to all beings. Besides, how we treat those who have no power to help or harm us shows who we really are. As the afternoon wore on, the child noticed something else remarkable about the workers. When someone made a mistake, a crooked cut, a wall that wasn't quite straight, instead of getting angry or hiding the error, they stopped work to fix it properly. Why don't they just cover up the mistakes? The child asked. Because right action includes being honest about our errors and taking responsibility for fixing them, the teacher explained. A mistake covered up becomes a bigger problem later. A mistake acknowledged and corrected becomes a lesson that makes everyone stronger. The child picked up a piece of scrap wood and was about to throw it aside when they stopped. Wait, they said. Is throwing this away right action? Maybe someone could use it for something. They carried the wood over to a pile of materials that were being saved for smaller projects. A worker smiled and thanked them. You're learning, the teacher said approvingly. Right action means being mindful of waste, thinking about whether something could be useful before discarding it. As the day ended and the workers began cleaning up their tools, the child noticed how they left the site. Every tool was carefully stored. Every piece of trash was picked up. The work area was actually cleaner than when they'd started that morning. We leave every place better than we found it, the foreman explained. That's our rule. right action means considering the impact of our presence, not just the impact of our work. Walking away from the construction site as stars began to appear in the darkening sky, the child felt inspired by what they'd seen. "Teacher," they said, "right action isn't just about big things like building houses, is it? It's about every little thing I do all day long." "That's right. How you treat your family at breakfast, how you walk through a forest without breaking branches unnecessarily, how you return something you borrowed, how you dispose of your trash. Every action plants seeds that will grow into either problems or solutions. And every time I choose to help instead of harm, to build up instead of tear down, to bring people together instead of push them apart, I'm practicing right action." "Perfect understanding." The teacher smiled. "Your hands have the power to help heal the world, one kind action at a time. Your feet have the power to walk gently on the earth. Your presence has the power to make every place you visit a little better than it was before." The child looked at their own hands in the starlight, seeing them differently now. These weren't just hands for picking up toys or writing homework. These were hands that could help build a better world, one caring action at a time. The path ahead stretched into peaceful darkness, leading them toward more lessons about walking gently through life. But already, the child felt different, more aware of the ripples their actions created, more committed to making those ripples spread kindness and healing wherever they went. Part 4. The Inner Temple. Chapter 10. Right Livelihood. Work that brings joy. The path led them through a gate made of intertwined branches into what looked like a bustling marketplace. But this wasn't an ordinary market. There was something special about every shop and stall they passed. At the bakery, the baker wasn't just selling bread. He was greeting each customer like an old friend, asking about their families, slipping extra rolls into bags when he thought no one was looking. His face glowed with genuine happiness as he worked. "Good evening, Master Baker," the teacher called. "Your bread smells wonderful, but you look even more wonderful. What makes you so happy?" The baker looked up from kneading dough, flour dusting his apron and arms. "Ah, travelers. I'm happy because I discovered the secret of right livelihood. Every morning when I wake up, I don't think, 'Oh no, another day of work.' I think, 'Another day to nourish people.'" He gestured to the loaves cooling on shelves behind him. "See this bread? It's not just flour and water and yeast. It's my way of showing love to my community. Mrs. Chen will take a loaf home to her grandchildren. Young Paolo will eat some before his big test at school. The Johnson family will share it around their dinner table tonight." "But it's still just bread," the child said, puzzled. "Ah, but that's where you're wrong, little one. Nothing is just anything when it's done with the right heart. This bread becomes connection, nourishment, comfort, love. My work feeds more than bodies. It feeds souls." The baker showed them his hands, strong and scarred from years of work. These hands could make bread quickly and cheaply, cutting corners to make more profit. But right livelihood means asking different questions. Not how can I make the most money, but how can I do the most good? They watched him work, and the child noticed how he touched each loaf gently, how he arranged them with care, how he cleaned his workspace not just for efficiency, but out of respect for his craft. "Every job can be right livelihood," the teacher explained as they walked through the marketplace. "It's not what you do that matters most. It's how you do it and why you do it." They stopped at a shoe repair shop where an elderly man was carefully stitching the sole of a well-worn boot. "These boots belong to the mailman," the cobbler told them. "He walks miles every day bringing letters and packages to people. I could fix them quick and cheap, but I'm fixing them to last because his work is important." He connects people across distances. My work helps him do his work better. At the next stall, a woman was teaching children how to weave baskets from reeds that grew wild by the river. I don't make much money teaching basket weaving, she admitted. But look at these children's faces. They're learning to create something beautiful and useful with their own hands. They're connecting with an old craft that might otherwise be lost. They're learning patience and skill. This work feeds my soul more than any amount of money could. The child watched the children's intense concentration as they learned to weave, their proud smiles when they completed their first small baskets. So, right livelihood means finding work that helps other people? Yes, the teacher said, but it's broader than that. Right livelihood means avoiding work that harms others, like selling things that hurt people, or cheating customers, or damaging the environment. And it means bringing the right intention to whatever work you do. They came to a small office where a woman was working by lamplight, surrounded by papers and books. "What kind of work do you do?" the child asked. "I help people understand complicated legal documents," she said. "It's not glamorous work, but when someone's grandmother dies and leaves them property, or when someone gets hurt and needs insurance money, they come to me confused and scared. I help them understand their rights and get what they're owed fairly. That doesn't sound like fun work." The woman laughed. "It's not always fun, but it's deeply satisfying. Last week I helped a family keep their home when a big company was trying to trick them into selling it too cheaply. The look of relief and gratitude on their faces, that's worth more than all the money in the world." They walked past a man who was sweeping the marketplace streets, whistling softly as he worked. "Even sweeping can be right livelihood," the teacher observed. "Watch him work." The sweeper moved with a kind of meditation, paying attention to each area he cleaned, taking pride in leaving everything spotless. When he saw a flower growing in a crack between stones, he swept carefully around it instead of disturbing it. "My grandfather was a street sweeper," he told them when they approached. "He taught me that every job is a way to serve the community. I keep these streets clean so children can play safely, so the elderly can walk without stumbling, so everyone can enjoy the beauty of the marketplace. My work might seem humble, but it matters." The child thought about this. So right livelihood isn't about what job you have, it's about doing any job with love and care. "Exactly," said a voice behind them. They turned to see a teacher who had been listening to their conversation. "I teach young children their letters and numbers. Some days they're restless, some days I'm tired. But I remember that I'm helping shape the future. Every child I teach might grow up to be a doctor who saves lives, or an artist who brings beauty into the world, or simply a kind person who makes others happy." They sat on a bench in the center of the marketplace as the evening settled around them. Lanterns began to glow in shop windows, creating a warm, golden atmosphere. "There's something else important about right livelihood," the teacher said. "It means not being so focused on work that you forget about the rest of life. Working so much that you don't have time for your family, or for rest, or for taking care of your health. That's not right livelihood either." A young father walked by, carrying his sleepy daughter on his shoulders as he closed up his pottery shop for the evening. "See how he balances work and family," the teacher pointed out. "His pottery brings beauty into people's homes, but he doesn't let his work consume all his time. He knows that being a good father is also part of his life's work." "But teacher," the child said, "what if someone has to do work they don't like? What if they need money and can't find work that makes them happy?" "That's a wise question." "Right. Livelihood means doing the best you can with whatever situation you're in. If you must do work you don't love, you can still do it with integrity and kindness. You can still look for ways to help others through your work. And you can work toward finding better work that aligns more closely with your values. They watched a night watchman beginning his rounds, checking that all the shops were secure. His job might seem lonely, the teacher observed, but he's helping everyone in the marketplace sleep peacefully, knowing their businesses are protected. Even work that others might not appreciate can be right livelihood when it's done with the right heart. As they prepared to leave the marketplace, the child reflected on what they'd learned. Right livelihood means finding ways to help others through my work, doing any job with love and care, avoiding work that harms people, and balancing work with the rest of life. Beautiful understanding, the teacher smiled. And remember, you're already practicing right livelihood as a child. When you help with chores at home, when you're kind to classmates, when you take care of your pets, when you do your schoolwork carefully, all of these are ways of contributing to the world with love. Chapter 11. Right Effort, the Steady Flame. They left the marketplace and climbed a winding path up a hillside. As they walked, they passed several interesting sights that made the child curious. First, they saw a man trying to tune a guitar. He was turning the tuning pegs frantically, making the strings tighter and tighter. Suddenly, one of the strings snapped with a sharp twang. "Oh no," the man cried. "I was so close to getting it perfect." A little further up the path, they encountered a woman sitting beside another guitar, but this one had strings so loose they made no sound at all when she strummed them. "I can't get any music from this," she sighed. "Maybe I'm just not meant to play guitar." Near the top of the hill, they found an old musician sitting under a tree. His guitar lay across his lap, and he was gently adjusting the tuning pegs with careful attention. "Excuse me," the child called. "We've seen two people having trouble with their guitars, but yours sounds beautiful. What's your secret?" The old musician smiled and gestured for them to sit with him. "The secret is right effort. Those two people you saw represent the two mistakes most people make when trying to learn something new or change something about themselves." He plucked one of his guitar strings, which rang out clear and true. The first man was using too much effort, trying so hard that he broke the string. The second woman wasn't using enough effort. The strings were so loose they couldn't make music. "But how do you know how much effort is just right?" the child asked. "Listen," the musician said, gently turning a tuning peg. The string's pitch rose slightly. "I turn it a little, then listen. If it needs more, I turn it a little more. If it's too tight, I loosen it slightly. I pay attention to what the guitar tells me, and I respond with just enough pressure. Not too much, not too little." The teacher nodded approvingly. This is exactly what right effort means in life. Not trying so hard that you exhaust yourself, but not being so lazy that nothing gets accomplished. They continued up the path and came to a beautiful garden where they noticed something remarkable. In one section, plants were struggling, some wilted from too much sun, others waterlogged from too much watering. But in another section, everything was growing perfectly. The gardener working in the healthy section looked up as they approached. She was an older woman with gentle eyes and dirt under her fingernails. "Your garden is beautiful," the child observed, "but that section over there looks like it's having problems." The gardener sighed. "That was my learning section. When I first started gardening, I made both mistakes that beginners make. I either tried too hard Watering too much? Fertilizing too much? Fussing over the plants constantly? Or I gave up too easily when things didn't grow perfectly right away? What changed? I learned right effort from watching nature itself. See this oak tree? She pointed to a magnificent tree that shaded part of the garden. It didn't grow by straining and pushing. It grew by steady, patient, consistent growth. A little bit each day, each season, each year. Never giving up, but never forcing. The child looked up at the massive tree, trying to imagine it as a tiny seedling. The tree teaches us that right effort is like keeping a steady flame burning, the gardener continued. Not a huge bonfire that burns out quickly, but a steady flame that can burn for a very long time. She led them to a small greenhouse, where she kept a lamp burning to give extra warmth to delicate seedlings. See this flame? It's not dramatic or exciting. It doesn't flicker or dance wildly, but it's been burning steadily for weeks, giving these little plants exactly what they need to grow strong. The teacher picked up the lesson. Right effort in your own life means setting up sustainable practices. If you want to become more patient, you don't try to become perfectly patient overnight. You practice being a little more patient each day. If you want to be more helpful, you look for small ways to help others regularly. They sat in the garden as the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft colors. "Let me tell you about the tortoise and the hare," the gardener said, settling into her storytelling voice. "I know that story," the child said. "The rabbit runs really fast but takes a nap, and the slow turtle wins the race." "Yes, but there's a deeper lesson about right effort in that story. The rabbit used his energy in bursts, running very fast, then stopping completely. The tortoise used steady, consistent effort. He never stopped moving forward, but he never exhausted himself either." The gardener pulled up a weed that was growing near her flowers. Right effort means being like the tortoise in everything you do. When you're learning to be more patient, you don't expect to become perfect immediately. You just practice being slightly more patient than you were yesterday. But what if I get frustrated and want to give up? That's where the steady flame comes in. When you feel like giving up, you don't have to try harder. You just have to keep the flame burning. Maybe today you can only manage to be patient for 5 minutes. That's fine. Tomorrow, maybe it's 6 minutes. The effort is steady, not dramatic. A butterfly landed on a nearby flower, and they all watched it gently sipping nectar. The butterfly doesn't force the flower to give up its nectar, the teacher observed. It lands gently and patiently receives what the flower offers. This is right effort too, working with life rather than fighting against it. As the evening grew cooler, they prepared to leave the garden. The gardener gave the child a small candle in a glass holder. "This candle will burn for many hours if you keep it out of strong wind and don't let the flame get too big. It represents right effort, steady, sustainable, reliable. When you're working on becoming a more patient, kind, or wise person, be like this candle. Keep the flame of your effort burning steadily, but don't try to make it into a bonfire." Walking away from the garden, the child understood something important about their own life. Sometimes when I decide to be better at something, I try really hard for a few days, and then I give up because it's too hard. That's like the man who broke his guitar string, isn't it? "Exactly," the teacher replied. "And sometimes you might think, oh, I'll never be good at being patient, and not try at all. That's like the woman whose guitar strings were too loose." So right effort means trying a little bit every day, like the tortoise, and keeping my effort steady like the candle flame. perfect understanding. And there's one more important part of right effort: taking care of yourself so you have energy to care for others. If you exhaust yourself trying to help everyone all the time, eventually you won't have any help to give. They paused to rest by a small stream, listening to the water flowing steadily over rocks. Another example of steady, sustainable effort that accomplishes great things over time. Chapter 12. Right mindfulness. The present moment. The path led them into a meadow where something magical was happening. A child about their age was walking slowly through the grass, but they seemed to be seeing everything as if for the very first time. The walking child stopped and knelt down, staring with wonder at a dandelion that had gone to seed. They watched, completely absorbed, as a gentle breeze carried the white, fluffy seeds into the air like tiny parachutes. "Oh," the child gasped with delight. "Look how they dance. Each seed is like a little wish floating away to find a new home." The teacher and the child approached quietly, not wanting to disturb this moment of perfect attention. The walking child noticed them and smiled brightly. "Hello. Have you ever really looked at how dandelion seeds float? I've seen them before, but today I'm really seeing them. It's like discovering magic that was always there." "What made today different?" the child asked. "My grandmother taught me how to practice right mindfulness. She said most of the time we walk through life like we're sleepwalking, not really paying attention to the wonderful things happening all around us. But when we wake up and pay attention, ordinary things become extraordinary." The mindful child led them through the meadow, and everywhere they went they pointed out marvels that others might miss. "Listen to the grass when you walk through it. It makes tiny whisper sounds. Feel how the air feels different in the shade of this tree than in the sunny spots. Smell how the earth smells different after yesterday's rain." The child began to notice all these things too, and suddenly the meadow felt like a completely different place, richer, more alive, more magical. "This is right mindfulness," the teacher explained. "It means paying complete attention to what's happening right now, in this moment, instead of letting your mind wander to yesterday or tomorrow." They sat together in the meadow, and the mindful child showed them how to practice. "First, notice your breathing," the child said. "Not trying to change it, just noticing it. It's like smelling the most beautiful flower. You breathe in slowly and pay attention to how it feels." They all breathed together, and the visiting child was amazed at how different breathing felt when they actually paid attention to it. "Now listen to all the sounds around you," the mindful child continued. "Don't try to name them or judge them. Just let them flow into your ears like music." The child heard birds singing, insects buzzing, leaves rustling, their own heartbeat, the distant sound of water flowing. When they really listened, the world was full of a symphony they'd never noticed before. "Now feel your body," the mindful child instructed gently. "Feel your feet touching the ground, your back against this tree, the air touching your skin. Your body is always in the present moment, even when your mind is somewhere else." The child felt the solid earth beneath them, the rough bark of the tree, the gentle evening breeze cooling their skin. They felt completely here, completely now, in a way they rarely experienced. "This is how I learned to be mindful," the mindful child explained. "My grandmother said that most of our unhappiness comes from our minds being somewhere other than where our bodies are. We're thinking about something that happened yesterday, or worrying about something that might happen tomorrow, and we miss what's actually happening right now." A rabbit hopped into the meadow, and instead of running away when it saw them, it seemed curious, because they were all sitting so still and peaceful. The rabbit came closer and closer, finally sitting just a few feet away to nibble grass. "See," whispered the mindful child, "when we're really present, really peaceful, even wild animals can sense it. We become part of the harmony of the moment instead of disturbing it." The teacher smiled. Right mindfulness has 4 main areas of attention. First, being aware of your body, how it feels, how it moves, what it needs. Second, the mindful child continued, clearly having learned this lesson well, being aware of your feelings, not trying to change them or judge them, but noticing them like weather passing through the sky. Third, being aware of your mind, noticing when it's calm or busy, when it's happy or worried, when it's focused or scattered. And fourth, the teacher concluded, being aware of everything around you, sights, sounds, smells, the whole world that's happening right now. A butterfly landed on the mindful child's hand, and instead of being excited or trying to grab it, they simply watched with wonder as it rested there for a moment before flying away. My grandmother taught me that right mindfulness is like being a gentle scientist studying the most interesting experiment in the world. This moment, the mindful child said. Every moment is different from every other moment that's ever existed. If you miss it by thinking about something else, you can never get it back. The visiting child thought about all the moments they'd missed because their mind was elsewhere. Meals they'd eaten without tasting, sunsets they'd seen without seeing, conversations they'd heard without listening. "It makes me feel sad to think of all the moments I've missed," the child said. "Don't be sad," the mindful child replied gently. "You can't change the moments you missed, but you can be present for all the moments that are coming. Right now is a new moment, and now is another one. Every breath is a chance to come back to the present." They practiced together as the evening light grew softer around them. The visiting child learned to notice when their mind wandered away from the present moment, usually to think about what they wanted for dinner, or to worry about something at school tomorrow, and how to gently bring their attention back to now. "It's like training a puppy," the mindful child explained. "When the puppy wanders away, you don't scold it. You just gently call it back. When your mind wanders away from the present moment, you don't get angry at yourself. You just gently bring it back." As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, the mindful child taught them one more practice. Before you go to sleep each night, spend a few minutes remembering the best moments from your day, not thinking about them, but remembering what they felt like in your body, what you saw and heard and smelled. This helps you appreciate the good moments more deeply and trains your mind to notice them better. The teacher stood and helped both children to their feet. Right. Mindfulness is perhaps the most important practice on the path because it helps with all the others. When you're mindful, you notice your intentions more clearly. You hear your words before you speak them. You see the effects of your actions. You recognize when your effort is too tight or too loose. As they prepared to leave the meadow, the visiting child felt different. The world seemed more vivid, more alive, more precious. They had learned that every moment was a gift, but only if they were present to receive it. "I want to remember this feeling," they said. "You can," the mindful child replied. "Whenever you remember to pay attention to your breathing, or really listen to sounds around you, or feel your feet touching the ground, you're practicing right mindfulness. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes." Chapter 13. Right Concentration. The Still Mountain. The path led them up, up, up into the mountains, where the air grew thin and clear, and the world spread out below them like a living map. At the very top of the mountain, they found a small temple built of simple stone, its windows glowing with soft, warm light. Inside the temple, a monk sat in meditation, so still that he looked like part of the mountain itself. His face was peaceful, his breathing so quiet it was barely visible, his whole being radiating the same steady calm as the mountain on which he sat. The child and teacher sat quietly nearby, not wanting to disturb this profound stillness. As they watched, they began to feel some of the monk's peacefulness settling into their own hearts. After some time, the monk slowly opened his eyes and smiled at them with the warmest, most welcoming expression the child had ever seen. "Good evening, travelers," he said, his voice like gentle water flowing over stones. "You've come to learn about right concentration?" "Yes," the child replied, somewhat in awe of the deep peace that seemed to surround the monk like an invisible light. "Come, sit with me," the monk invited, patting cushions on either side of him. Right concentration is the simplest thing in the world, and also the most challenging. It means training your mind to be like this mountain, stable, peaceful, unshakable. They settled onto the cushions, and the child immediately felt the difference between this kind of sitting and ordinary sitting. There was an intention to it, a purpose that made even sitting feel important. "Look out that window," the monk said, pointing to where storm clouds were gathering in the distance. "Do you see those clouds?" "Yes," the child said. "It looks like there might be rain soon." "Now look at this mountain we're sitting on. When the storm comes, what will happen to the mountain?" The child thought about this. "The mountain will get wet, but it will still be here. The storm can't move it or knock it down." Exactly. The mountain doesn't fight the storm or try to push the clouds away. It simply remains stable and peaceful while the weather passes over it. This is what right concentration teaches your mind to do. The monk gestured to his own head with a gentle smile. "Up here I have all kinds of weather. Sometimes angry thoughts, sometimes worried thoughts, sometimes excited thoughts, sometimes sad thoughts. They're like clouds and storms passing through the sky of my mind. But how do you stay peaceful when you have angry or worried thoughts?" The same way the mountain stays peaceful during a storm. I don't fight with my thoughts or try to push them away. I just sit like the mountain, steady and still, and let the thoughts pass through without being moved by them. The monk showed them how to sit properly for meditation, back straight but not rigid, hands resting comfortably, eyes either closed or gazing softly downward. Right concentration begins with watching your breath, the monk explained. Not controlling it, just watching it. It's like watching clouds drift across the sky. You don't try to change the clouds, you just observe them peacefully. They sat together, and the child tried to watch their breath the way the monk described. At first, it felt strange to pay so much attention to something that usually happened automatically. "My mind keeps wandering away from my breath," the child said after a few minutes. "Perfect," the monk replied, surprising them. Noticing that your mind has wandered is actually the most important part of meditation. It means you're developing awareness. Now, gently bring your attention back to your breath. The child tried again, and again their mind wandered. To thoughts about dinner, about tomorrow's weather, about whether they were doing the meditation correctly. "It's like trying to hold water in my hands," the child said, feeling frustrated. But you're thinking about it wrong," the monk said kindly. "You're not trying to hold your attention like holding water. You're trying to be like the mountain, a stable place where your breath can come and go, where thoughts can come and go, where feelings can come and go, all while you remain peacefully present." Outside, the storm arrived. Rain began pattering against the temple windows, and thunder rumbled in the distance. But inside, the three of them sat in perfect stillness. "Feel how stable you are," the monk whispered. "The storm is all around us, but here in the temple, here in our meditation, there is perfect peace. This peace is always available to you, no matter what's happening in the world around you." The child began to understand. They weren't trying to stop thoughts from coming. That would be impossible. They were learning to be the peaceful space in which thoughts could come and go without disturbing their inner calm. Right. Concentration has different levels, the monk explained during a break in their meditation. At first, you might only be able to concentrate for a few minutes at a time. That's perfectly fine. Even 1 minute of true concentration is precious. What happens as you get better at it? As you practice, your mind becomes more stable, more peaceful, more focused. You start to experience deep states of calm and clarity. But the most important thing isn't achieving some special state. It's developing the skill of returning to peace whenever you need it. They meditated together as the storm raged outside, and gradually the child began to experience what the monk was describing. Their mind became like still water, perfectly clear and calm. Thoughts still arose, but they passed through like gentle fish swimming through a peaceful lake, not disturbing the fundamental stillness. "This feeling," the child said during another break, "it's like the peaceful lake from the autumn garden, isn't it?" "Yes," the monk beamed. Right concentration is how you reliably find that peaceful lake inside yourself. It's not something you have to search for far away. It's right here, right now, always available. But what about when I'm not meditating? When I'm at school or playing or doing other things? That's the beautiful secret of right concentration. The more you practice formal meditation, sitting quietly like this, the more that peacefulness becomes part of how you live every day. You start to bring mountain-like stability to everything you do. As the storm passed and stars began to appear through clearing clouds, the monk taught them one final lesson. Right concentration isn't separate from all the other parts of the path. When your mind is calm and focused, you understand things more clearly. Your intentions become purer. Your speech becomes kinder. Your actions become more skillful. Everything works together. They sat together in the peaceful temple as the night deepened around them. The child felt like they had discovered a precious treasure, the ability to find perfect peace inside themselves, no matter what was happening in the outside world. "The mountain is always here," the monk said as they prepared to leave. "Storms come and go, seasons change, years pass, but the mountain remains stable and peaceful. The peace inside you is like this mountain, always there, always reliable, always available when you remember to connect with it." Walking down from the mountain temple, the child carried with them the feeling of that deep stillness. They had learned that right concentration wasn't about forcing their mind to be quiet, but about discovering the quiet that was already there, waiting patiently beneath all the mental noise and activity. The path ahead led them toward their final lessons, but the child felt ready now. They had learned to walk the gentle path, step by step, breath by breath, moment by peaceful moment. Part 5. The Great Understanding. Chapter 14. Everything is connected. As they descended from the mountain, the path led them into a valley unlike anything they had seen before. Here, suspended between tall trees, hung the most magnificent web they could imagine. It stretched as far as they could see in every direction, made not of spider silk, but of fine threads that sparkled like starlight. At each place where the threads crossed, there hung a perfect jewel: diamonds, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, each one reflecting all the others in an endless dance of light. When the gentle breeze stirred the web, every jewel caught and reflected the light of every other jewel, creating patterns of brilliance that took their breath away. "This is Indra's net," the teacher said softly. "One of the most beautiful teachings about how everything in the universe is connected." An old weaver sat nearby, tending to the magnificent web. Her fingers moved with practiced grace as she adjusted threads and polished jewels that had grown dim. "Good evening, keeper of the net," the teacher called. "Would you share the secret of this wonder with us?" The old woman looked up with eyes that sparkled like the jewels she tended. "This net represents the deepest truth about existence," she said. "Look closely at any single jewel." The child approached and studied one beautiful diamond hanging at eye level. In its faceted surface, they could see reflections of all the other jewels stretching into the distance. "What do you see?" the weaver asked. "I see all the other jewels reflected in this one jewel. And when I look at those reflections, I can see that each of them also reflects all the others." "Exactly. Every jewel contains the image of every other jewel, and those reflections contain reflections of reflections, going on infinitely. Change the position of one jewel, and every reflection in every other jewel changes too." The teacher nodded. "This is how reality truly works. Every person, every animal, every plant, every grain of sand, every star in the sky, we're all like jewels in this infinite web. What happens to one affects all the others." The weaver gently touched one of the threads, and the entire section of the web vibrated in response, causing all the jewels to dance and shimmer with new patterns of light. "When you smile at someone," she explained, "it's like touching one thread in the web. That person feels brighter, and they might smile at someone else, who then feels brighter and smiles at another person. The light of your kindness spreads through the entire web of connection." The child walked beneath the web, looking up at the countless jewels above them. "So when I'm mean to someone, that spreads through the web too?" "Yes," the weaver said gently. "But here's something wonderful. Light is stronger than darkness. One bright jewel can illuminate many others, and kindness has more power to spread than meanness does." They came to a place where the web dipped down low enough for them to touch. The child reached out and gently brushed one of the jewels with their finger. Immediately, waves of light rippled outward, jewel by jewel, until the entire visible web was shimmering with reflected brilliance. "You just sent light to every being in the universe," the weaver said with a smile. "That's the power each of us has, the power to brighten the whole web with our actions." The teacher sat on a moss-covered log and invited the child to sit beside them. "Let me tell you how this connection works in everyday life," they said. "Think about the water you drank today. Where did it come from?" The child thought. "From a cup, which was filled from the tap, which came from pipes, which came from a river or a lake. And before that it was rain that fell from clouds, and before that it was ocean water that rose up as mist, and before that it was part of other rivers, and it's been drunk by countless other people and animals and plants throughout history. The water in your body right now has been part of everything. clouds and oceans and other people and flowers and trees. The child looked at their hands in wonder. So I'm made of the same water that's been everywhere? Not just water. The oxygen you breathe was made by plants and trees. The food you eat grew from soil that was made from rocks and leaves and countless generations of life. The elements in your body were created inside ancient stars. You are literally made of stardust and ocean and sunlight and the breath of forests. The weaver overheard and added, and not just physically connected by love, by kindness, by the care that brought you into being. Think of all the people who helped make your life possible. The child began to list them. My parents, my grandparents, the farmers who grew my food, the people who built our house, my teachers, the people who made my clothes. And their parents and teachers and helpers, the teacher continued, and the people who taught them and built their houses and grew their food. The web of connection goes back through all of history. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the jewels dance in their endless web of reflection and connection. This understanding changes everything, the teacher said finally. When you truly see that we're all connected, it becomes impossible to harm others without harming yourself. It becomes natural to care for others because caring for them is caring for yourself. The child stood and walked through the web, careful not to disturb its delicate beauty. It makes me feel bigger and smaller at the same time. Bigger because I'm connected to everything, smaller because I'm just one small part of something so vast. Both feelings are true, the weaver said. You are one precious, unique jewel in the infinite web, and you are also the entire web itself. Every jewel is individual and special, and every jewel is part of the one great pattern. A gentle rain began to fall, and instead of running for shelter, they stood and let the water bless them. Each droplet that touched the web created new patterns of light and reflection. Even this rain connects us, the teacher observed. It falls on all of us equally, rich and poor, young and old, human and animal. The same water that touches us now will become streams and rivers, will nourish plants that feed creatures, will rise again as mist to become new clouds. The child held out their hands to catch raindrops. Like we're all drops of water that think we're separate, but we all belong to the same ocean. Beautiful understanding, the weaver smiled. You are a drop of water who has awakened to remember that you are also the ocean. As they prepared to leave the valley of Indra's net, the child looked back one more time at the infinite web of jewels, each one reflecting all the others in endless patterns of light and beauty. I'll never forget this, they said. I'll never be able to look at another person without remembering that we're connected like these jewels, all reflecting each other, all part of the same beautiful web. Chapter 15, Compassion. The Heart's Light. The path led them to a peaceful grove where they heard the most beautiful sound. Not quite music, not quite singing, but something that made their hearts feel warm and full just hearing it. Following the sound, they found its source, a large tree where a mother bird sat with her wings spread wide. But she wasn't just protecting her own chicks. Nestled under her wings were baby birds of many different species, robins, sparrows, wrens, even a young owl who should have been her natural enemy. How extraordinary, the teacher whispered. She's caring for all the young ones, not just her own. An old woman sat beneath the tree, watching the mother bird with eyes full of love and admiration. She looked up as they approached. She's been doing this for years, the woman said softly. Whenever she finds a young bird in need, lost, injured, orphaned, She brings it here and cares for it as if it were her own child." The child watched in amazement as the mother bird gently preened the feathers of a baby sparrow, then turned to feed a young wren, showing no favoritism, no distinction between her biological children and her adopted ones. "How did she learn to do this?" the child asked. "She discovered the secret of true compassion," the old woman replied. "She learned that love doesn't get smaller when you share it. It gets bigger." The teacher nodded knowingly. "This is what we call boundless compassion, love that extends beyond our immediate family to embrace all beings who are suffering or in need." They sat quietly watching the mother bird, and gradually other birds began arriving, parent birds bringing food to share, young birds from previous years returning to help care for the newest arrivals. The whole tree had become a community of caring. "But how is this possible?" the child wondered. "I thought animals only cared for their own babies." The old woman smiled. "Most do, because they haven't awakened to the deeper truth that this mother bird understands. She sees that all young birds are, in a sense, her children. All beings who suffer are her family. Her heart has grown so big that it has room for everyone." A small sparrow chick fell from a branch, and immediately several adult birds rushed to help. Not just the mother bird, but others who had learned her way of loving. They gently lifted the chick back to safety, each one treating it with tender care. "This is how compassion spreads," the teacher explained. "When one being shows boundless love, others are inspired to expand their own hearts. Love creates more love. Caring creates more caring." The old woman stood and walked closer to the tree. "Let me tell you how I learned about compassion from watching this remarkable bird," she said. "Years ago, I was very concerned only with my own family, my own problems, my own needs. If someone outside my immediate circle was suffering, I might feel sorry for them, but I didn't feel moved to help. My heart felt small and closed." "What changed?" the child asked. "I started watching this mother bird. At first I thought she was just confused. Why would she waste energy caring for babies that weren't hers? But as I watched day after day, I saw something amazing. The more she gave her love away, the more love she seemed to have. She wasn't depleting herself by caring for others. She was actually becoming more radiant, more alive, more joyful." The child noticed this too. The mother bird didn't look tired or stressed despite caring for so many young ones. Instead, she seemed to glow with a peaceful happiness. "I decided to try an experiment," the old woman continued. "I started extending my care beyond my immediate family. When I saw neighbors struggling, I offered help. When I heard about children in other countries who needed food, I sent what I could. When I met elderly people who were lonely, I spent time with them." "Did it make you tired, caring for so many people?" The old woman laughed gently. "I thought it would, but the opposite happened. The more I cared for others, the more alive and energetic I felt. My heart grew bigger and stronger, just like hers." She gestured to the mother bird. The teacher picked up a small stone and threw it into a nearby pond. They watched the ripples spread out in ever-widening circles. "Compassion works like these ripples," the teacher explained. "It starts small, close to home, then spreads outward. First you learn to be kind to yourself, then to your family, then to your friends, then to strangers, then even to people who are difficult or different from you." "But teacher," the child said, "sometimes I'm not very kind to myself. I get angry at myself when I make mistakes or feel frustrated when I can't do something well." "Ah, this is very important," the old woman said, settling beside them. True compassion must begin with yourself. You cannot give to others what you don't have for yourself. A young bird nearby was struggling to learn to fly, falling repeatedly and chirping in frustration. The mother bird didn't scold or rush the young one. Instead, she perched nearby, making encouraging sounds, showing patience and gentle support. "See how she treats the struggling chick?" the old woman pointed out, "with infinite patience and kindness. This is how you must learn to treat yourself when you're struggling or learning or making mistakes." The child thought about how they often talk to themselves, usually with criticism and impatience when things didn't go perfectly. So being compassionate to myself means talking to myself the way the mother bird treats her chicks, with patience and encouragement instead of criticism? Exactly, the teacher smiled. When you make a mistake, instead of thinking, "I'm so stupid," you can think, "I'm learning, and learning takes time." Instead of, "I always mess up," you can think, "This is hard, and I'm doing my best." As the evening grew deeper, they watched the mother bird settling all her various chicks for the night, tucking each one safely under her wings regardless of their species or size. "There's one more important thing about compassion," the old woman said. "It doesn't mean fixing everyone's problems or making everyone happy all the time. Sometimes the most compassionate thing is simply to understand and care, even when you can't change the situation." "What do you mean?" "Sometimes people are sad or scared or angry, and there's nothing you can do to fix it. But you can still offer the gift of understanding. You can still let them know they're not alone. You can still send them love from your heart, even if you can't solve their problems." The child remembered times when friends were upset about things they couldn't control. Parents divorcing, grandparents dying, moving to new schools. They had felt helpless because they couldn't fix these big problems. "So I can still help by just caring and listening?" "Yes," the teacher said. "Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer is simply your presence and your love. Just like this mother bird. She can't solve all the problems of every young bird in the world, but she offers safety and care to the ones who come to her." As stars began to appear overhead, the child made a decision in their heart. "I want to be like the mother bird," they said quietly. "I want to learn to have a heart big enough to care for everyone who needs caring." The old woman reached over and gently touched the child's hand. "You already do," she said. "The capacity for boundless compassion is already in your heart, just waiting to be awakened. Every time you choose kindness over indifference, every time you help someone who's struggling, every time you treat yourself with patience, you're letting that compassion shine brighter." As they prepared to leave the grove, the mother bird looked down at them from her tree and seemed to nod, as if blessing their intention to spread love throughout the world. "Remember," the teacher said as they walked away, "compassion isn't about being perfect or saving everyone. It's about keeping your heart open, offering what love you can, and trusting that love to create ripples of healing wherever it goes." The path ahead led them toward their final destination, but the child's heart felt different now. Bigger, warmer, more connected to all of life. They had learned that love shared was love multiplied, and that the greatest gift they could give the world was a compassionate heart that saw all beings as family. Part 6. Finding Your Purpose. Chapter 16. The Meaning of Life Revealed. The path led them to the edge of a great river, wider and more beautiful than any they had seen. This wasn't ordinary water. It flowed with liquid light, carrying sparkles and glimmers that looked like countless tiny stars floating toward the distant ocean. "This is the river of love," the teacher said, their voice filled with wonder, even though they had seen this sight many times before. This is where we discover the true meaning of life. Along the riverbank, people of all ages were gathered, each one carrying something precious to the water's edge. A grandmother carried a basket of warm bread. A young father carried his sleeping daughter. A teenager carried a poem they had written. A little boy carried a flower he had picked. One by one, they waded into the glowing water and released what they carried. The bread dissolved into nourishment that flowed downstream. The father's love for his daughter became visible light joining the river's flow. The poem became music that danced on the current. The flower became fragrance that sweetened the air above the water. "What are they doing?" the child asked, mesmerized by the sight. "They're discovering their purpose," the teacher replied. "Watch closely and you'll understand." An old ferryman sat in a simple boat nearby, and he called out to them, "Would you like to understand the secret of the river of love? Climb aboard, and I'll show you where it leads." They stepped into the boat, which began moving downstream without any effort from the ferryman. The current carried them gently along, and the child could feel the love in the water itself. Warm, nurturing, alive with countless gifts that people had shared. "Long ago," the ferryman began, "people wondered about the meaning of life, just like you did when your journey started. They asked, 'Why are we here? What's the point of everything?' And for ages they searched everywhere for the answer." The boat passed a small village where children were playing by the water's edge, their laughter joining the river's song. Some people thought the meaning of life was to gather as much as possible: money, possessions, power, fame. So they spent their lives trying to collect these things, like trying to scoop up water in a net. The child imagined trying to carry river water in a net and understood immediately how impossible that would be. Other people thought the meaning was to experience as much pleasure as possible, to eat the finest foods, to have the most exciting adventures, to feel good all the time. But pleasure is like bubbles on the river, beautiful while it lasts, but always popping and disappearing. They passed a section where the river widened, and the child could see more clearly what was flowing in the luminous water: kindnesses given, problems solved, comfort offered, beauty created, wisdom shared. Then some very wise people made a discovery, the ferryman continued. They realized that life isn't about what you can gather or what you can experience. Life is about what you can give. Life is about adding your own love to this great river that flows toward the ocean of all being. The child leaned over the side of the boat, watching the current of light and love flowing endlessly toward the sea. "So the meaning of life is to add love to the river?" "Yes, but it's even more specific than that," the teacher said. "Your purpose, every person's purpose, is beautifully simple. You are here to reduce suffering and increase joy wherever you can, however you can, with whatever gifts you have." The ferryman guided the boat to a quiet cove where they could rest and watch the river flow by. "Let me tell you about the Buddha nature that lives inside every person," he said. "Buddha nature?" the child asked. "Yes, Buddha means awakened one, someone who has woken up to see life clearly, to understand their true purpose, to live with wisdom and compassion. And here's the wonderful secret. Everyone has Buddha nature inside them, like a seed of light waiting to grow." The ferryman reached into the water and cupped some of the glowing liquid in his hands. "See this light? This same light lives inside you, inside everyone you've ever met, inside everyone you will ever meet. Sometimes it's bright and obvious. Sometimes it's hidden under layers of fear or anger or confusion, but it's always there. The child thought about people they knew, their kind teacher, their grumpy neighbor, the bully at school who made everyone afraid. Even mean people have this light inside, especially mean people, the teacher said gently. People who are cruel or selfish are usually people whose inner light has been covered up by pain or fear. They've forgotten their Buddha nature, but it's still there, waiting to be rediscovered. A family of swans glided past on the river, their movements graceful and purposeful. Look how they move, the ferryman observed. They're not struggling against the current, they're working with it, using its energy to help them reach their destination. This is how you live your purpose, the teacher explained. You don't fight against life or try to force things to happen. You find ways to work with the flow of life, adding your unique gifts to the great river of love that connects all beings. As they floated peacefully in the cove, the child asked the question that had been growing in their heart. But how do I know what my gifts are? How do I know how I'm supposed to reduce suffering and increase joy? The ferryman smiled. The answer is already inside you, in your Buddha nature. It shows up as the things that make your heart feel warm and full. What makes you happiest? Not the temporary happy of getting something you want, but the deep happy of being truly useful and loving. The child thought about this carefully. I feel that deep happy when I help my little cousin learn to read, and when I make my grandmother laugh, and when I take care of hurt animals, and when I draw pictures that make people smile. There you have it, the teacher said with joy. Those feelings are your Buddha nature showing you your purpose. Every time you help someone learn, or bring laughter, or care for creatures who need help, or create beauty that lifts spirits, you're fulfilling your life's purpose. The boat began moving again, carried by the gentle current toward a place where the river opened into a vast, luminous ocean that stretched beyond the horizon. This is where all the love goes, the ferryman said softly. Every kindness, every moment of compassion, every act of service. It all flows into this great ocean of love that surrounds and nourishes all of existence. The child stared in wonder at the ocean of light, understanding finally that they were part of something infinitely beautiful and meaningful. Their small acts of kindness were drops in this vast ocean, but every drop mattered. Every gift of love made the ocean fuller and brighter. The meaning of life, the teacher said as they gazed out at the endless expanse of luminous water, is to remember that you are both a drop in this ocean and the ocean itself. You are unique and precious, with your own special gifts to give, and you are also part of the one great love that connects everything. Chapter 17, Your Special Gift to the World. As they returned along the river, they heard the most extraordinary music floating on the evening air. Following the sound, they came upon a hillside where hundreds of people sat in a great circle, each one playing a different instrument. There were violins and flutes, drums and harps, simple wooden whistles and elaborate brass horns, homemade guitars and ancient bells. Some instruments the child had never seen before. Some were just voices humming or hands clapping. But somehow, impossibly, all these different sounds blended together into the most beautiful symphony they had ever heard. Welcome to the orchestra of life, called a conductor who stood in the center of the circle. Unlike most conductors, she carried no baton and wore no formal clothes. She simply moved with the music, encouraging each player with gentle gestures and radiant smiles. How do you get everyone to play the same song? the child asked in amazement. The conductor laughed warmly. That's the beautiful secret. We're not all playing the same song. Everyone is playing their own unique melody, the song that lives in their heart. But when we play our own authentic music with love, it somehow harmonizes perfectly with everyone else's authentic music. She led them around the circle, introducing them to various musicians. There was a baker who played rhythm on mixing bowls and wooden spoons. My music is about nourishment, he explained. I play the steady beat that reminds people they are fed and cared for. A teacher played gentle melodies on a small flute. My music is about learning and growing, she said. I play the curious melodies that help minds open and expand. A doctor played deep, healing tones on a cello. My music is about mending what's broken, he said. I play the songs that help bodies and hearts remember how to be whole. A gardener played earth rhythms on a drum made from a gourd. My music is about growing and blooming, she said. I play the patient rhythms that help things become what they're meant to be. But what if someone doesn't know what their instrument is? The child asked. What if they don't know what music they're supposed to play? The conductor sat down beside them on the soft grass. Let me tell you a story about a young person who felt exactly that way, she said. There was once a girl who came to the orchestra of life, feeling lost and confused. She listened to all the beautiful music everyone else was making and felt sad because she didn't have an instrument of her own. She tried playing other people's instruments, but nothing felt right. The music around them continued, each player absorbed in their own contribution to the greater symphony. The girl spent weeks trying different instruments, drums like the gardener, flute like the teacher, cello like the doctor. But every instrument felt awkward in her hands, and the music she made sounded forced and unnatural. What happened to her? One day, she sat by herself, feeling very discouraged. She started humming quietly, not trying to make music for anyone else, just comforting herself with a little tune. It was a simple melody, nothing fancy, but it came from deep in her heart. The conductor pointed to a young woman sitting nearby who was indeed humming, not loudly, but her voice wove through the other instruments like golden thread through a tapestry. That's her, the conductor smiled. She discovered that her instrument was her own voice, and her music was the song of comfort and healing. Now, whenever someone in the orchestra feels discouraged or tired, they listen for her humming, and it reminds them that they're not alone. The child walked around the circle again, this time listening more carefully to each person's unique contribution. They began to notice that some people weren't playing traditional instruments at all. An elderly man sat quietly with his eyes closed, and somehow his stillness added something important to the music, a sense of peace and deep wisdom. A young mother rocked her baby gently, and the rhythm of her swaying created its own subtle beat that helped hold all the other rhythms together. A group of children played together nearby, and their laughter became like tiny silver bells scattered throughout the symphony. Everyone has an instrument, the conductor explained, but not everyone's instrument looks like what we usually think of as music. Some people's gift is making others feel welcome. Some people's gift is asking good questions that help others think clearly. Some people's gift is simply being peaceful in a way that helps everyone else feel calm. The child sat quietly for a moment, listening not just to the music around them, but to something stirring inside their own heart. I think my instrument might be helping people feel understood, the child said slowly. When my friends are sad, I'm good at listening and helping them feel like someone cares. And when adults are talking about complicated things, I ask questions that help everyone understand better." "Yes," the conductor exclaimed with delight. "That's exactly it. Your gift is the music of understanding and connection. The world desperately needs that music." The teacher nodded approvingly. "Do you see how perfect this is? You don't have to become someone different to fulfill your purpose. You just have to become more fully who you already are." As the sun began to set, the orchestra's music grew softer and more peaceful, like a lullaby for the whole world. "There's one more important thing to understand about your special gift," the conductor said. "Your music will change and grow throughout your life. The way you play your instrument as a child will be different from how you play it as a teenager, and different again when you're an adult and when you're elderly." "You mean I might have different gifts at different times?" "Your core gift, your essence, stays the same, but it finds new expressions. Your gift of helping people understand each other might show up as being a good friend when you're young, a helpful team member when you're in school, maybe a teacher or counselor or writer when you're older. The instrument stays the same, but the songs you play become richer and more complex." The child felt a deep sense of relief and excitement. They didn't have to figure out their entire future right now. They just had to pay attention to what made their heart sing, what came naturally to them, what felt like their own authentic way of adding love to the world. Chapter 18. The Endless Circle. As the orchestra's evening song came to a gentle close, the conductor led them to a special place at the top of the hill where a circle of ancient stones formed a perfect ring. In the center grew a tree whose branches reached toward the stars, while its roots disappeared deep into the earth. "This is the circle of giving and receiving," the conductor said. "Here you'll understand the final mystery of a meaningful life." Around the circle, people sat in pairs, but something beautiful was happening. As they watched, they saw that everyone was simultaneously giving something and receiving something, but in an endless, flowing dance. A grandmother was teaching a young man how to knit, passing on skills learned over decades. At the same time, the young man was sharing stories of his travels, giving the grandmother glimpses of places she'd never seen. A child was showing an adult how to see shapes in the clouds, sharing the gift of wonder and imagination. The adult was patiently helping the child tie their shoes, sharing the gift of practical knowledge. A teacher was helping a student understand mathematics, sharing knowledge and encouragement. The student was helping the teacher learn to use a computer, sharing skills from a younger generation. "Do you see the pattern?" the conductor asked. The child studied the circle more carefully and began to understand. Everyone is both a teacher and a student at the same time. Everyone has something to give and something to receive. Exactly. This is one of the most beautiful truths about life. When you help others, you help yourself. When you learn from others, you help them too. The circle of giving and receiving never ends. It just keeps flowing around and around, making everyone richer. They sat beside the ancient tree, and the teacher picked up the lesson. Remember when you were worried about finding your purpose? You thought you had to search for it somewhere far away. But your purpose has been with you all along, growing stronger every time you've helped someone or learned something new. The child thought about their journey, all the gardens they'd visited, all the people they'd met, all the lessons they'd learned. I was learning the whole time, but I was also helping, wasn't I? When I asked good questions, it helped you explain things better. When I shared my own thoughts and feelings, It helped other people feel less alone. Yes. The conductor clapped her hands in delight. You've discovered the secret. The moment you start walking the path of wisdom and compassion, you're already serving others. You don't have to wait until you're perfectly wise or completely compassionate. Every step you take on the path makes it easier for others to follow. An elderly man overheard their conversation and joined them. I've been walking this path for 70 years, he said, and I'm still learning something new every day. But I realized long ago that I started helping others the moment I began trying to be kind and wise, not when I finally became perfectly kind and wise. How do you mean? The child asked. Well, when I was your age and I first started trying to be more patient, I wasn't very good at it. I still lost my temper sometimes, but my little sister watched me trying, and it inspired her to try being more patient too. My imperfect efforts helped her begin her own journey. The child felt a warm glow of understanding. So even though I'm still learning, I'm already helping just by trying? Yes, and there's more, the teacher added. Every time you practice kindness, you make it easier for the next person to be kind. Every time you choose understanding over judgment, you add understanding to the world. Every time you respond to anger with compassion, you break a cycle of hurt and start a cycle of healing. They watched the people in the circle continuing their beautiful dance of giving and receiving as stars began to appear overhead. There's one more thing to understand about this endless circle, the conductor said softly. The love you give away always comes back to you, but often in unexpected ways and from unexpected sources. She pointed to a woman in the circle who was patiently teaching a child how to read. She volunteers to help children learn because her own grandmother taught her to love books when she was young. The love her grandmother gave her is flowing through her to this child, who will someday pass it on to someone else. And the kindness you show to someone today might inspire them to be kind to someone else tomorrow, the teacher added. That person might then be kind to someone who eventually becomes kind to you. The love travels in a circle, but it grows larger and stronger with each person it touches. The child thought about all the kind people they'd met on their journey. The baker, the gardener, the musician, the ferryman. They were all happy people, weren't they? Really happy, not just pretending to be happy. Yes, they were, the conductor confirmed. And do you know why? Because they had discovered the secret of true happiness. It doesn't come from getting what you want. It comes from becoming who you're meant to be. And you become who you're meant to be by giving your gifts freely and joyfully. The ancient tree above them rustled in the gentle night breeze, and the child noticed something beautiful. Its branches were full of fruit, and some of that fruit was falling to the ground where it would plant new trees. But the tree wasn't worried about running out of fruit. The more it gave away, the more it seemed to grow. That's how love works too, the elderly man observed, following the child's gaze. The tree doesn't hold on to its fruit, afraid there won't be enough. It gives freely, trusting that more will always grow. And because it gives so generously, forests of new trees spring up around it. The child stood up and walked to the edge of the circle, looking out at the peaceful landscape they'd traveled through. The gardens, the villages, the marketplace, the mountain temple, all connected by the winding path of discovery. I understand now, they said quietly. The meaning of life isn't just one thing. It's understanding that everything changes, so we appreciate each moment. It's knowing that wanting too much makes us unhappy. so we find contentment in what we have. It's remembering that peace is always available inside us. It's walking the gentle path with right understanding and compassion. It's seeing how we're all connected. It's sharing our unique gifts. And it's joining the endless circle of giving and receiving love. The teacher smiled with deep satisfaction. You have learned well, little one. But remember, this isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning. Now you know the path exists and how to walk it. Every day for the rest of your life, you'll have opportunities to practice these teachings, to grow in wisdom and compassion, and to help others find their way to the same understanding. The conductor stood and gestured toward the path that led back toward home. The circle is complete, but it never ends. You came seeking the meaning of life, and you found it. Now you carry that meaning back into the world, where it will touch every person you meet and every situation you encounter. As they prepared to leave the sacred circle, the child felt different than when they'd begun their journey. Not completely different. They were still the same curious, caring person they'd always been, but now they understood who they were and why they were here. They were a unique and precious part of the infinite web of existence, carrying light to share with the world, always learning and always teaching, always giving and always receiving in the beautiful, endless dance of love. The path home stretched before them, bathed in gentle starlight, and the child walked forward with a heart full of peace, purpose, and infinite possibility. Part 7. Peaceful Dreams. Closing. Sweet dreams, little Buddha. The path led them gently downward now, winding back through all the places they had visited on their long journey of discovery. But everything looked different in the soft starlight, more peaceful, more magical, like the whole world was settling down for a good night's rest. They passed the construction site where the workers had finished their day and gone home, leaving behind the foundations of homes that would shelter families for generations. The tools were put away with care, and the building materials were covered with tarps that fluttered gently in the evening breeze like sails on a calm sea. They walked by the marketplace where the shops were closed now, but warm light glowed in the windows above where the shopkeepers lived with their families. The baker's bread was cooling on the windowsills, filling the air with the comforting smell of home and nourishment. The village where people spoke in musical voices was quiet now, but even their whispered good nights to each other sounded like the gentlest lullabies drifting on the night air. The mountain temple glowed softly in the distance, its windows like gentle stars, where the monk continued his peaceful meditation, sending waves of calm out into the world. And ahead, the child could see it, the first garden where their journey had begun. The garden of spring looked different now, under the blanket of stars. The flowers that had been wilting when they first arrived had completed their cycle, their petals returning to nourish the earth. New buds waited patiently for tomorrow's sunshine, and everything felt perfectly in its right place and time. The old oak tree where they had first met the teacher stood peaceful and strong, its branches reaching up toward the star-filled sky, while its roots reached deep into the nurturing earth. The teacher sat down under the tree, just as they had at the beginning, and invited the child to sit beside them one more time. Here we are, back where we started, the teacher said softly. But you're not the same person who began this journey, are you? The child settled against the tree's strong trunk and looked up at the stars through its branches. No, I'm not. I still have questions, but they don't make me feel lost anymore. I still wonder about things, but now I understand that wondering is part of the beauty of being alive. And what do you understand now about the meaning of life. The child was quiet for a moment, feeling all the truths they had learned settling gently in their heart like soft snow covering the earth. I understand that life is about learning to love, loving myself, loving others, loving this whole beautiful, changing world. And I understand that everyone is on the same journey I am, even if they don't know it yet. We're all trying to find our way back to the peace and kindness that lives in our hearts. The teacher nodded with deep satisfaction. You have learned well, little Buddha. Little Buddha? Yes, Buddha means one who is awake. And you have awakened to see life clearly. You understand that everything is connected, that love grows when we share it, that peace is always available inside you, and that your purpose is to reduce suffering and increase joy wherever you can. That makes you a Buddha too. The child felt a warm glow in their chest, like a candle flame that would never go out. So everyone can be a Buddha? Everyone already is a Buddha deep down. Some people just haven't remembered yet. But every act of kindness, every moment of understanding, every choice to respond with compassion instead of anger, these are all Buddha nature shining through. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves above them, and the child felt incredibly peaceful. All the rushing thoughts that used to fill their mind had settled into calm, like sediment sinking to the bottom of a clear lake. As you go to sleep now, the teacher said, their voice becoming softer and more melodious. Carry these truths gently in your heart. You don't need to hold on to them tightly or worry about forgetting them. They are part of you now, woven into who you are. The child's eyelids were growing heavy, and they felt themselves sinking into the most comfortable, peaceful state they had ever experienced. Remember the 4 great truths whenever life feels difficult. The teacher's voice seemed to come from very far away now, like an echo of love. Everything changes, so appreciate each moment while it's here. Wanting too much makes us tired, so find contentment in what you already have. Peace is always available inside you, waiting to be found. And there is a gentle path that leads to happiness, and you know how to walk it. The child nodded sleepily, feeling these truths settling into their bones like ancient wisdom finally coming home. Remember that you are both a unique, precious individual and part of the infinite web of connection that includes every living thing. You matter tremendously, and you belong completely to the great family of existence. The stars seem to be twinkling more softly now, like they too were getting ready for sleep. Remember that your gifts are needed in this world, your ability to help people understand each other, your questions that help everyone think more clearly, your natural compassion that helps others feel less alone. The world is waiting for the unique light that only you can shine. The child felt themselves drifting, like floating on the gentlest current of a warm river. And remember that every day is a new chance to practice walking the path with wisdom and kindness. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep choosing love, keep choosing understanding, keep choosing the way that leads to less suffering and more joy. The teacher's voice was barely a whisper now, mixing with the sound of the breeze in the leaves and the distant music of night insects. Sleep now, little Buddha. Let your dreams be filled with all the beauty you've discovered. The peaceful lake, the gentle path through the forest, the infinite web of jewels, the river of love flowing toward the ocean of all being. Let your heart rest in the knowledge that you are loved, you are needed, and you have everything inside you that you need to live a meaningful, joyful life. The child's breathing became deep and regular, their body completely relaxed against the tree's supporting trunk. In their dreams, they walked again through all the gardens they had visited, but now they moved like the peaceful monk, like the wise teacher, like someone who had found their way home to their own true nature. The teacher sat quietly beside them for a while, watching over their peaceful sleep, sending waves of loving kindness into the world. For this sleeping child, for all children everywhere, for all beings who were searching for meaning and peace, for all who had forgotten their Buddha nature, and all who were just beginning to remember. The stars wheeled slowly overhead, and the earth turned gently in its ancient rhythm, carrying all its sleeping children safely through the night. Somewhere in the distance, the river of love continued flowing toward the ocean, carrying the gifts of billions of hearts toward the infinite source from which all love springs. And in the garden under the old oak tree, a child slept the sleep of the peaceful, dreaming dreams of wisdom and compassion, ready to wake tomorrow as someone who knew their place in the beautiful, interconnected dance of existence. Sweet dreams, little Buddha. The path is always here when you're ready to walk it, and the light of understanding will never go out in your heart. Long, peaceful silence, with the gentle sounds of night settling in, crickets, distant water, leaves whispering in the breeze, and the soft rhythm of peaceful breathing.